Where it all begins again, WrestleMania 20, the retro review. This is recorded one day before the 20-year anniversary of this show. Myself and Alex Steve are in house. We're going to be reviewing the whole show for you that took place at Madison Square Garden, March the 14th, 2004. And of course, on this show, quite a few big talking points. Of course, Eddie Guerrero defending the WWE Championship against Kurt Angle. We have the whole debacle of Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar with Steve Austin as the referee. And well, I can't help, I have to talk about the elephant in the room to begin with. Of course, this is the WrestleMania that WWE wants you to forget. And the reason for that, of course, is one Chris Benoit. Of course, a name that's, well, been completely erased from WWE history. And of course, on this night, when you look back in 2004, that wasn't the case. This was a guy that had been working for 18 years to get to the main event spot of WrestleMania. Of course, he goes on to win the championship as well. Him and Eddie have what at the time is seen as an iconic moment for WrestleMania. But of course, 3 years later, things are very, very different, of course. Just make a quick mention of it for those who are unaware of it, of course. Chris Benoit, of course, did murder his family and himself. And this is going to spark a lot of emotion from people in the wrestling community. It does on a consistent basis. But what we will say here at the start of this video is you can be a great pro wrestler and you can be a horrible human being. You can be both of those things. You don't need to discuss one or the other. You can be both. And thankfully for us in this stream, from this moment forward, we'll be talking about WrestleMania 20 and WrestleMania 20 only. We do not support anything of what happens. And I'm pretty sure myself and Steve will be giving a very different account of maybe how we would have felt to 2004. It's definitely a different sort of watching it in 2024. I can say that for facts, to be fair. And on that note, I think it's a great place to bring Alex Steve into the house. Alex Steve, how are you doing? WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. What a big show we had to review there for us. 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's 4.5 hours long, and a lot of it is not very good for a WrestleMania. Like I was shocked at some of the stuff that goes on in this match. Even there's just the matches in general. Like, I'm like, why has this show got like 14, 15 matches? Why is it going on for so long? And even the title package alone, where it all begins again, at no point does it ever explain it until the Undertaker match, what all begins again. Because just to go into the opening package to starters, like the opening package for me made no sense, because you've got some people talking about being in Madison Square Garden, and you've got some people talking about the fact that it's WrestleMania, and I'm like, what message are you trying to deliver here with this? And it all begins again. And I'm like, obviously you get Vince at the end with Shane and I presume Shane's newborn child. And I'm like, I don't understand the package. I mean, it's like I said, it makes sense with Undertaker, but otherwise I do not have a clue as to what is beginning again at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to look back at it, going back into the time machine, if you want, it's 2004. Of course, we had a draft. We had the roster split. Of course, we had obviously Raw and SmackDown that were drafted in 2002. They had not been doing drafts since then. The first draft was going to be coming after this show, so it was going to shake things up. Everything that we knew was going to be different. The rosters that we were used to seeing were going to change, which I think was kind of the right time at that point, because obviously you'd had WWE or WWF in 2001 actually purchasing WCW and ECW, done all the invasion stuff, then had too many people on the roster and many people being left off a show that made logical sense was to have a set of wrestlers on Raw, set of wrestlers on SmackDown, and like you say, where it all begins again, because we are back in the place where WrestleMania 1 took place. I'm going to say MSG, Madison Square Garden, New York City, the world's most famous arena. I've got to say, a beautiful arena as well, having the pleasure of actually attending there once. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's where I take from all of this, really, because when you look 20 years previous, WrestleMania, it's where it all started, where you had the likes of celebrity of Muhammad Ali, Cyndi Lauper. You had the star power of wrestling, of which at that time was Hulk Hogan, of course, and you had everything that was what was the identity of WrestleMania, and this was sort of to celebrate that and also take with the current crop and move forward. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. When you look into a video package, it sort of tries to tell that message, but I don't think it does the most amazing job of doing it, if we're being brutally honest. But obviously, I mean, just to quickly go into the minor details for people that are interested, obviously the attendance of this show was 20,000 people, complete sellout. We're in the buy rate era as well. 1,020,000 people bought this show, which of course, not a surprise at all. We've already talked about the tagline, where it all begins again. And for those that are wondering, the pay-per-view track, the song that you need to get on your Apple Music or Spotify after this. And no, we're not sponsored by either. Is Drowning Pool and Step Up, which I've got to say, pretty decent sounding tune, if I do say so myself. But NXT, is there anything you'd like to talk about before we dive into WrestleMania 20?
Only about the intro, about the song itself. It's a great song, but it's unfortunately Drowning Pool's only good song after they changed their singer, because I think the original vocalist blew out his vocal cords and they had to change singer. And if I remember correctly, this is their only good song after then. But otherwise, yeah, it is a banging tune.
Absolutely, yeah, it is a banging tune, to be fair there. And obviously, one of the tunes that will always be done at every WrestleMania is America the Beautiful, and that does kick off with the Boys of Harlem singing that song to open the show. We mentioned about the video package, so without further ado, we will be diving into what is the first match of the show, and of course, giving you the results all the way through as well. John Cena becoming the United States champion. Thugonomics John Cena as well, defeating the Big Show. Just to give you a few details of what happens in this match. Of course, John Cena at this point, saying Dr. Thugonomics, does one of his Max Caster raps. Nice bit of inspiration there. But the show, Big Show dominates this match with a early advantage, catching Cena off the top rope, power slamming him into the ring. Obviously, he targets the back a lot through the match as well. And I've got to say, one move impressed me was the standing leg drop across John Cena's chest. Of course, this only got a 2 count at the time. Show continues to dominate, applying a Cobra Clutch as well. A bit of a tribute to Sergeant Slaughter, been inducted into the Hall of Fame that weekend. But as Cena actually gets out, Show actually makes a mistake. Obviously, John Cena landing a drop kick into the Big Show, who actually then goes straight into the turnbuckle in the corner. Cena actually manages to land his FU, of course, attitude adjustment for PG viewers. Nice to have you on board. But Big Show does kick out at a 2 count. At this point, then John Cena grabs his chain, but the ref takes it off of him. But as the ref's back is turned, Cena has brass knuckles and uses those on the Big Show, followed with another FU, and he picks up the win. And we've got a brand new United States champion. No hustle, loyalty, and respect. This is all about the Dr. Thugonomics. He needed to cheat to win, but John Cena gets the job done, his first WrestleMania, and of course wins the United States Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a padlock. I don't think it was a knuckle dusters. I think it was the padlock from his chain that he uses. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed this match. Like, it was actually nice to see Big Show doing wrestling, whereas later on in his years, he just tends to kind of be like a very limited roster of movements. But I was, like I said, I enjoyed Big Show. Like, I felt like it was actually nice to see him do wrestling. Cena, obviously at the time, he's massively on the upturn. Like, he's a massive crowd favorite for being a heel. His promo is cringy as anything. The fact that he even says the word penis and STD, and as per normal, he's got a packet of cashew nuts sitting in his pocket that he can throw at someone. Just an overall, it's a well booked match. Like, I didn't have a problem with this. I thought it was a great little opener. The fact that we get a new United States champion out of it as well. I remember this match just for the fact that Cena wins this as well. Like I said, I can't really argue with this. I thought it was a great way to open the show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I've got to say, when you look at the storyline arc of the whole match as well, the fact that the commentary really put over the Big Show. The fact that he had been dominant, had been losing matches. It's a little bit of a telltale sign he would be losing, obviously. But at the same time, Big Show was just dominant. John Cena couldn't get into the match. Whatever he did, he wasn't able to get anywhere. And obviously, like I say, he needed the cheat to win, use his finishing move twice. But it is all about building that new style for the future. And John Cena, of course, he would go on WrestleMania 21. He would be then going on to world titles, not mid-card titles. So he does get a show. Job well done here with how they did things. Story worked all the way around. And all in all, this was a good opener for me. And the MSG seemed to really like this. The crowd were into the result of this match. But if you would give it a star rating, what would you give?
2.5. I think, like I said, nothing to blow us away, but I just thought it was well booked. Big Show had a great showing, and right result, like the heel win over, and it was obviously this guy goes on to be a 16-time world champion. So this is literally the starting point of where John Cena becomes a massive superstar.
Yeah, I have to agree with that comment, and so does actually Pierre here in here. He actually, if I can find the comment at the moment, he does got to say this is John Cena's first big win on pay-per-view. Here we go. I forgot the comment for you here now. And it is the first real defining one of John Cena's career. Obviously, this is a 9-minute and 14-second match. I have to agree with your star rating. I think that you're bang on the money. But looking at Dave Meltzer, gives us a 1.25 star. Obviously, not as big a fan of this one is Big Dave.
I'm intrigued by the rest of the show then if he's only giving this a 1.25, because this is where the show goes downhill for me.
Well, I can say there is certainly some interesting moments that do go through. And like I said, we're going through selective comments on this one. And we will bring some comments into it. Just the fact that this show is 4.5 hours long. And I can say the notes are as long as my arm. So, yeah, we're going to try and get through the show as best as we can in quite efficient fashion. But we will be going to comments as well. But going to backstage, though, we have Eric Bischoff, his appearance on the show, obviously talking to Jonathan Coachman, telling Coach to find The Undertaker. Coach doesn't really want to do it, but of course he's told to do so, so he will go and do it. We've got Randy Orton and Evolution as well backstage. Of course, Batista and Ric Flair, obviously minus Triple H, who's preparing for that main event. We see images, of course, of the build with Randy and Mick Foley as well. Of course, Mick being kicked down the stairs in Madison Square Garden the previous June on Monday Night Raw. The fact that Foley was going to challenge for the IC title, but hey, it didn't kind of work out in the end. Randy and spitting in Mick's face as well. His time has passed. It's just Evolution. And of course, there was beating after beating on Mick Foley, obviously calling Hollywood and The Rock getting involved as well. But look, it's their time now. And tonight is where it all begins again. It goes again using that tagline, and where it all begins again. I guess new stars being bought in Evolution is the ones that get the mention. But we'll go on into the second match in the meantime, which is for the WWE World Tag Team Championships. Completely forgotten that RVD and Booker T were champions at this point, and they go on to defeat Mark Jinerak, Garrison, Cade, of course, better known as Lance Cade later on in his career. Of course, was teaming with Trevor Murdoch in those days as well. And we've got the Dudley Boys, and we've got La Resistance as well, Rob Conway and Rene Dupree, all in the sudden death fatal four-way. Just quickly go through some of the details of the match then for you, because there isn't so much on this one really. It's not really given the most amount of time, this match, if we're being brutally honest. It's only been given 7 minutes and 51 seconds for 8 superstars. That's less than a minute each for you to shine. Booker is the one that is being beaten down throughout the match, and everyone is pretty much looking to try and get an advantage wherever they can. The referee has difficulty keeping control in this match, but the hot tag is made to RVD. Everyone is brawling around the ringside area, but of course we do see Booker T hit his scissor kick on Rob Conway. RVD follows that with a 5-star frog splash, and of course the champions do retain. What were your thoughts then of the second match here with RVD and Booker T retaining the World Tag Team titles?
What happens to Sylvain Grenier? Because obviously he's the original member of La Resistance before Rob Conway comes in as a sympathizer. Because, you know, WWE loves a sympathizer, by the way.
That is a very good question. And that is a question that deserves a really good answer. I don't have that answer. No, but if the comments do,
no problem.
I have no idea. My memory lane is not as going to... If I had to guess, it's going to be an injury or Rene Dupree thought he could do better. One thing I am kind of aware of is that I do know that I believe that Sylvain Grenier and Rob Conway, I think, eventually become a tag team with La Resistance when Rene Dupree actually becomes a SmackDown superstar later in the year. But Scott Retro Wrestling does say, I believe he was injured. So it looks like that probably could be the way that happened at that point.
Right, no problem. Well, back to the match anyway. I personally felt that they spent longer explaining this match than the match actually was. I am not a fan of fatal four-way matches. The fact that this match doesn't make sense. The fact that you only have 2 guys in there, they have to be like there's still 2 teams on the outside, and it just logically doesn't make sense. And the fact that we have 2 of these matches on the card is just horrific. I do not like it. I'm glad they don't do it no more. Apart from that, there's not really much else you can say. They don't give enough time. I mean, my only other picky, greedy thing was that Booker T and RVD's music was horrific. It's like the most awful. It was like as if I had just started DJing, and that was the first thing I decided to mix was Booker T's and Rob Van Dam's entrance musics. Because geez, it was bad, man. Yeah, like I said, there's not really much I can say about it. It's really short. They don't get enough time to do anything. And you got La Resistance and Jinerak and Cade, who just look like generic wrestlers. They're not. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing identifiable about them. They literally look like the same guy, just split in half, and do you know what I mean? Multiplied. Not a very good match for me. I just thought it was pointless being on the card.
Yeah, I had a pointless feel with it being on the card. I kind of feel like, and this is not to really detriment the younger guys at the time, because I think most of them don't have other WrestleMania appearances. Maybe Cade might be one that does, but I mean, I think I could have been happier with an RVD Booker T versus Dudley Boys tag team match here and just gone with that.
Exactly. Yeah, like they seem to have a stacked tag team division, but they seem to have a stacked tag team division, but the quality's not there. So what's the point in doing the match? They should have just had the one-up match between the Dudleys and RVD and Booker.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. What would be your star rating for this one?
2. It felt like a normal TV match for me, like literally something we would have got on a Raw or SmackDown that could have easily not been on the show.
Yeah, to be fair, I kind of feel the same. I'm going to go slightly lower. Though. I'm going to go for like a 1.75. I mean, everyone came up and did their job. Obviously, RVD is my favorite wrestler. The 5-star frog splash was awesome. But yeah, for me, I just felt like this felt rushed. I think that's the problem. It felt rushed. So hey, it is what it is. But Ed Fry's in the house does say, don't forget Jinerak was supposed to be a massive name and replace Batista in Evolution. Absolutely, indeed. What could have been if Jinerak was a part of Evolution? But of course, I believe immaturity was the reason of going through the Ruthless Aggression series on the WWE Network. Or of course, Peacock for those people that are from the States, and of course, in future terms, if you're watching Netflix. But Scott Retro Wrestling, he does quickly say, agree with Steve. Those 4 tag teams that should not have been on the card, or that 4-way tag shouldn't have been on the card. Yeah, kind of agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe in the house as well. Hope you're doing well, Joe. And Temple Plays, I hope you're doing well as well. In fact, goes on to make a great comment as well here about Christian and Chris Jericho, which we'll move into in a couple of moments' time, saying great storytelling. It's a very underrated WrestleMania match. Do agree with that. And we will be talking on that in a couple of moments' time. But of course, this match here, the tag team match, just under 8 minutes time. And like we say, we give this quite a low rating. And Dave Meltzer gives this a 1.5 star as well. So not a big fan of this one either.
How does he give it more than Big Show Cena? This was horrific.
I don't know. Horrific. That's why I'm going to answer that with I don't know. I don't know a lot so far. If anyone's watching this, yes, clueless. But someone else that's clueless is Jonathan Coachman, because he's backstage looking for The Undertaker, but instead finds Mean Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan coming out of a backstage area with lipstick all over them. A few questions are asked to Mean Gene and Bobby, who don't really want to answer them too much, but of course Moolah and Mae Young appear and then pull the guys back in for more action. What screams you Ruthless Aggression era more than this? We'll keep it brief.
The fact that I have to listen to Mae Young going, look at my puppies, look at my puppies, and I'm like, are you serious? Is this the kind of stuff how have I turned out to be a normal human being and I'm watching this 20 years ago? Literally, Mae Young comes out and she's going, look at my puppies, look at my puppies. I like the fact that I'm having to repeat myself and say it twice is bad enough. It's horrific, man. Like, it was a funny skit, but then they just kind of ruined it with the absolute trash that they used to spill out back in 2004.
Absolutely. To be fair, obviously she was involved with puppies at the Royal Rumble 2000, but I think we'll save that for another day. We don't need to talk about that here and now. But we will move on to what was described there as a very underrated WrestleMania match from Temple. Let's talk about it. Christian defeating Chris Jericho. There's a video package that comes with this one as well. I mean, Jericho and Christian had made a bet of $1 Canadian because they were best friends and they were teammates at this point. That Jericho could get with Trish first, or Christian could get with Lita first. But the story seems to ditch Lita from this point. It all goes about Chris Jericho and Trish Stratus, where Jericho pretty much says that he's caught real feelings, that this is not about this anymore, and him and Trish were really getting along, and but it all changes when Trish finds out about the bet. Christian says that Trish isn't interested in Chris after Trish said that they were good friends. We can see that Christian's basically meddling between the two. Christian suggesting that someone else could put themselves into the picture. He puts his arm around Trish Stratus. We see a kiss with Jericho and Trish, though, as Bischoff makes a match between Christian and Trish. Christian offers to lay down for Trish, but then kicks out at 2, and that she makes Trish tap out with the walls of Jericho. Christian said he did that for Jericho. He said that it ruined Chris's life and ruined their friendship, and Jericho comes out and attacks Christian before Christian escapes. Very a 2004 type style of build here to WrestleMania, but was you hyped seeing this? Obviously, you get a little bit of details going into this one. This has become quite personal between these two.
I mean, if you're looking at this match on card, technically this should be a really, really good match. Christian is great in ring. Jericho's great in ring. For me, like I said, I think the storyline it's a 2004 storyline. The fact that this whole is all based off a $1 bet is a kind of where I find that that's the precipice of the start of this storyline. And yeah, it is what it is for 2004. But yeah, just like I said, these two on card should be a really good match.
Yeah, it should be a really good match. And to be fair, I don't think it was a bad match, to be fair. Obviously, if we go into the details of the match, obviously, it looks quite personal from the off, obviously, with the way that they tie up, a very aggressive start between the two of them. Christian is back dropped to the floor from Jericho. Then we see Jericho jump from the second rope over the top rope to the floor. And we see Christian as well going into the barricade. Christian back suplex Jericho to the floor as well. So both guys being thrown out early doors into the match. We do get a slow middle part of the match, which I think maybe a part where you might sort of grade this down a little bit because it is quite slow. Christian applying chin locks. We see both men obviously collide heads as well. And we see the pace finally quicken back up for the final third. Christian trying to grab the rope on a roll up to try and get the advantage. We see a Texas Cloverleaf as well put on to Chris Jericho. Jericho manages to get out of this and put on the walls of Jericho. Christian then attempts to get out of the ring, but the hold is still on, which is then used on the floor. I thought that was a really nice touch of a move as well, and the fact that the submission could remain applied, easy for me to say. Double underarm hook suplex from the top rope from Jericho. Of course, Christian kicks out at 2. And this is when we see Trish come out as well, and we see a great impaler DDT from Christian. Again, a 2 count with a kick out. Trish gets up on the apron. Christian actually grabs her hair and pulls her into the ring, throws her in the corner. And this is when Jericho knocks Christian out of the ring. As Jericho goes to check on Trish Stratus, she's sort of seemingly blinded at this point. Elbows Chris, not realizing it's him, or so we think. Christian gets the roll up, and Christian picks up the victory. But of course, then to follow this, Trish seems apologetic. Start with Chris Jericho, obviously trying to pull him back a little bit as Christian's coming towards the ring once again because he'd gone to the rampway. Jericho looks like he wants to go and meet Christian for a bit more action. This is when Trish spins him around, slaps him a couple of times. And then that's where Christian grabs Jericho and lands the unpretty. And of course, then we see Christian and Trish aligned together. And of course, we have a kiss with those two on the ramp to close off the segment. So it looks like that Christian and Trish were an item at this point. So what were your thoughts of Christian versus Chris Jericho?
A technically sound match. My issue was that it does, like you said, it doesn't really start going to about halfway through when you're just sitting there doing rest holds when we've just had that rushed tag team match, and it was kind of like it's not like you're coming off of anything exciting and you need to bring the crowd back down again. It was like this is where I feel this match is let down, and like I said, it's technically sound, just it's boring for about half the way through it, and it's not like it's a long match either. I think if they maybe had a bit more time, but it's a very clever ending to the match as well with the whole Trish thing. But my only other issue is I think maybe like 12, 18 months later now, we're getting the same thing with Edge and Lita, and it's kind of like this story is rehashed at a later point in the same sort of dynamic. The fact that they get the kissing on the top of the ramp, and it's, do you know what I mean? My instant when someone says to me name a WWE moment where that happens, my brain instantly goes to Edge and Lita instead of Trish and Christian. So yeah, like I said, it was technically sound. I just felt like I don't know, man. It's like it's WrestleMania, and I'm expecting more. And I don't know. Like I said, it was okay, man.
I think this match was fine. I think as I sort of tried to get through the details of the match, I think the start goes quite hot, obviously, like I said, with the over the top rope antics. But I think then we have a really, really slow middle third, the second
Yeah,
part of this match. But then when it picks up, I think from that point onwards, there's quite a lot of talking points, quite a lot of near falls, the submissions. My favorite spot of the whole match is Jericho keeping hold of that walls of Jericho to get to the floor. I think that's a really clever way to build that up there, and I think is a real good selling point for the match. But the finish is clever as well. I must admit, back then I didn't see it coming. Obviously, a bit more wiser when you're watching it to a second time in the match. I have to agree with Scott Retro Wrestling as well. A shout out to Christian for that DDT in the match. The Impaler DDT was very impressive looking as well. All in all, I think this match was fine actually for a WrestleMania match, but it's just shy of 15 minutes. 14 minutes and 52 seconds. And I think if there's anything you'd like to add, Nick Steve, and give your grade rating for this match as well.
no, like I said, I think I don't know. Like I said, maybe it wasn't given enough time. Maybe it was built wrong. I don't know. Like I said, it felt like this could have done better if it was maybe an opening match, or like I said, I think bad misplacement on the card. But for me, I've gone 2 3/4. I think, like I said, it's better than Cena and Big Show. And it was a very technically sound match. Just unfortunately, it has nothing going for it afterwards.
No, it's a fair grade for me. I mean, I'm going to go for a 3 star. I did enjoy it. I think there's some elements of it. I think had I enjoyed the middle portion of the match more, I think that this could have been going up to like the upper entrance, never near a 4 star for me. I think it was a really good match overall. And like I said, the final third really ramps things up a little bit. But looking here on for the ratings for Mr. Meltzer, he's gone for 3.5 stars. So this is his favorite match so far on the entire show.
I must have this something.
Yeah,
Then.
I mean. Well, I mean, to be fair, you've give what I think is could be seen as a fair grade. I've only gone slightly higher than yourself on that one, so I don't blame you for what you've said there at all. But we'll go backstage in the meantime. Lillian Garcia is with Mick Foley and The Rock. Obviously, Mick is making his first appearance at a WrestleMania in 4 years, and The Rock gets on the mic, says it's our night. He says everyone knows it. We get to see the Hurricane and Rosie. They know it. So we get to see Jimmy Snuka and Del Morocco. They know it, and of course, the people know it as well. We get a shot with the doors open, and obviously everyone in the arena is going a bit frenzy as well, because it looks like that they're going to come through the crowd at one point. But yeah, I think it was a good hype for obviously the Rock and Sock connection actually having their reunited moment there. But really shocked in the way that you have the Rock and Sock connection versus Evolution being match 4 on the show here. Of course, it's a 3 versus 2 handicap match. Was you surprised that this was so early in the show?
I have a few issues with this show. The placement, yes, is one of them, but the interview for some reason really randomly takes part where the side entrance, where the old entrance would be for Madison Square Garden when they used to do Rumble and
Yes.
stuff. And why? They're the next match on, and the interview is half the way down the building from where they have to come down the ramp. So it kind of logically doesn't make sense. But yeah, like I said, I have issues with this match in general. But yeah, like you think for it being The Rock. I don't know if it's essentially Mankind's farewell, but like they still there. Obviously, he still wrestles for years afterwards. But like obviously being Madison Square Garden, I don't know if this was a thing for him. You would have thought it would have been a higher on the card match, really.
In a way, I would have thought it would have been, because, you know, when you look at it, obviously The Rock is come back for this as well. So it's him, Mick Foley, Ric Flair's involved as well, still a big name at that point. Obviously, Randy Orton and Batista still wet behind the ears at this point. Obviously, another sort of year or so before they sort of really start to make their mark here in the WWE. But obviously, Evolution certainly puts them in the right direction. You could even argue the next month for Backlash, Randy Orton and Mick Foley have an absolute screamer of a match after this show. But obviously, this is kind of like I suppose the start of a feud rather than the end. You see a lot of matches at WrestleMania when it's like this is the finish of a story, a la Cody Rhodes. But I mean, obviously, this is like the beginning of one when it comes to Randy Orton and Mick Foley, because, like you say, they've been building this for since the previous June. So it's been going on for about 8 or 9 months. But you get to hear, and obviously, there's more story to develop at the end of this. It's only the first match that involves Mick Foley and Randy Orton in the ring together. But to go in some detail of the match anyway, we'll quickly go through the match details and I'll get your thoughts in full. Obviously, and see what some of your flaws with the match are as well, because obviously the Rock backdrop Flair on the floor early doors, and we see Mick Foley doing an elbow from the ring apron. It is a big hype moment from the crowd as well. Randy Orton's in the tree of woe, and The Rock just blatantly hits a low blow, which was quite humorous actually. The crowd really did react to that as well. But Evolution eventually take control on Mick Foley. We see Orton throw Foley over the ring stairs, classic spot for Foley as well. The Rock eventually gets that hot tag in. Plenty of exchanges in this match with The Rock and Ric Flair. Feels like they are usually when The Rock's in the match, Ric Flair is also in the match. Obviously, The Rock has said that Ric Flair is one of his idols, so I guess this is their way of having a WrestleMania match and their moment together, if you will. But Flair attempts the people's elbow in a Nate style, but The Rock then, of course, lands some right hands before hitting the real people's elbow. The Rock hits the rock bottom on Randy Orton, but Flair pulls The Rock out of the ring in the pinfall. Then Ric Flair distracts the referee on the floor after getting the chair. Batista lands a Batista bomb. Orton goes for a pin attempt, and only a 2 count is given. Foley gets tagged in with Orton, and we get a double underarm hook DDT on Randy Orton, and then we see Mick Foley go for Mr. Socko. It looks like we're going to get the mandible claw from Mick Foley, but this is when Randy Orton it seems very sudden. I'm going to say it's a very sudden finish to a match. I feel like it wasn't ready for a finish, in my opinion, but this just goes to show RKO out of nowhere. And they do say as well, it's out of nowhere on the commentary as well for the pinfall victory, which is interesting because obviously that point is what Evolution winning. They have the advantage with the 3 versus the 2. But of course, you're building up the new stars in Randy Orton and Batista as well. Fans celebrate Foley despite the loss, and there is a hug with The Rock after the match. And just to give you a timestamp as well for this match, another quite lengthy one, this one, 17 minutes and 3 seconds long. So NXT, would love to know your thoughts with the Evolution versus Rock and Sock Connection match.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the promo at the start of the show, which is a very green Randy Orton, and you can tell he hasn't fully established his mic skills at the start of the show. What's the reason why this is a handicap match? Like, I'm not too clued in. They don't actually tell us why this is a handicap match.
I don't actually know. It's again, number knows in this. About the third or fourth time.
That's
I don't
what I'm
know.
saying. Yeah, it was this. This was the thing that I was kind of confused by, and I was like, okay, the whole precipice of the promo was the story of Orton and Foley. Yeah, I think about 3 minutes in total is spent in this match between Orton and Foley. This, like you said a minute ago, this felt really more like a Rock and Flair match because they spend most of the time in the match. And then I sat there and thought to myself, why have the Rock and Flair never had a one-on-watch? At this point, it was only the second time they've ever been in the ring together. The other time was a random match on Raw in 2002. And you sit and think to yourself, why have these two guys never actually had a match? They're in the business at the same time. Again, just another one that completely surpasses me. But yeah, it was just like I said, it was the story that I got from the promo was this was all Foley and Orton. And then the match itself has nothing to do with Foley and Orton. I think Foley spends more time on the floor on the outside than actually in the match. So I just, again, a bit confused by where the booking with the story was. And then the other thing that really got me was Rock clotheslines Flair outside the ring. And all of a sudden, Flair turns into Speedy Gonzalez. And he's gone. He's just sprinting around the ring to get a steel chair. And I was like, I've never seen Flair move that quickly in my life. And it was like, there was no reason for why he should be moving at that speed. It was really confusing. Like, I had to rewind it back, and I was like, all Rock does is gives him a close on the outside, and apparently that set him off. And yeah, just again a really random one. And like I said, the fact that a 17-minute match, and like I said, I think I worked out about 3 minutes of it is about Flair, is about Orton and Foley, and like that was the story, I presume, going into the match. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is, isn't this roughly where the Legend Killer starts for Randy Orton as well?
Yes, it's around this sort of time period that really sort of gels in for Randy. The thing is, for me, the way I look at it, and I agree with your points that you make, I have no disagreements with it, but I feel it's like almost the prelude, almost. It's like the appetizer. You're wetting the palate for the reason of why you need to watch Backlash, because obviously then they go and have the killer match a month later. It's almost like, so rather than WrestleMania being the end of the chapter or the end of the story, I can't believe I keep doing the story now. It's a Cody Rhodes season, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this in a few years' time. Obviously this is obviously just an opening chapter or a middle chapter at this point to what is going to be a conclusion later down the line, which obviously does happen at WrestleMania sometimes. The big match happens for the first time, and then what they've done is here, I think they've protected people here. Like you said, Randy Orton's still, at this point, very green at this point in comparison to what he does become. Batista could be as well. I think this is the reason why Ric Flair's there, the experience has, because Flair does a majority of the work for Evolution in this match. Yeah. When you look at it, of the three people, Flair is the one that is mainly doing a lot of the dirty work. Mick Foley's not been in the ring for a long time. Neither has The Rock, to be fair, but at the same time, let me say, perhaps The Rock has had less time away from the ring at this point than Mick Foley has, because Mick Foley apparently hadn't competed in four WrestleManias for definite at this point. Not really clearly had a match, I think, in between that point. I think there have been loads of teasers of matches with Randy Orton, but never actually probably materialized. So I think that's kind of the reasoning of why they've done what they've done with this match, if I had to break it down and try and look at it from logic. But I do think they make a good argument with it nonetheless.
It was just a bit that confused me.
I can see why as well. But what I do feel, though, is that it's a good job that WWE kind of managed to sugarcoat it as well. Because when you think about it, the Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution, this is why I think it's shocking it's match 4 on the card, because it's like, it feels big time. It feels a lot bigger than actually perhaps what it is. And it's one of the longer matches on the show. So I think it's the third longest match on this show. So it does go to show, it does get given a lot of time as well. But what would be your star rating for this match?
I gave it a 2.5. It wasn't a bad match. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It was the storyline that really got me with it, and it was kind of like, that's what really confused me. And obviously, with that context, it's a bit hard to enjoy it when you're being shown one thing at the start of the show, and then the actual match is something completely different as to what's been teased. So, but yeah, I gave it a 2.5.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, for me, I'm going to go for a 3. I've just like the last match. I actually feel like I enjoyed this match more now than what I probably did back in the day. Like you say, looking at the elements of what plays into everything as well. And knowing what comes afterwards as well, obviously that's the beautiful of hindsight 20 years later. I know how this finishes, and what it makes. So for me, I can enjoy it. And I think for the match itself, looking at the details, I think everyone's protected that needs to be. And I did enjoy the Ric Flair Rock moments together. I've got to say the people's elbow bit was a nice touch in the match for me. I thought it was quite comical. So I'm going to go for a 3-star myself. But let's look what Dave Meltz has had rated this one as well, because we like to give Dave Meltz's ratings as well for those that are interested. And he's actually gone for a 3 3/4 star rating. This is his favorite match on the show so far.
I may have slightly underrated it, but I don't think it's like I'm obviously comparing it against the rest of the show, and I was kind of like, this is no way in comparison that high in quality compared to what is yet to come. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, I could probably bump mine up to probably what you're suggesting, because it probably does make sense. I did enjoy it. Like I said, it's just the story that killed it for me. And like I said, I really did enjoy the flock, the Flair and Rock one-upsmanship in the ring. I like the way they were just taunting each other. I just thought it was great. And like I said at the start, it's a shame that we never generally got a good one-on-one match between these two on a pay-per-view. So, yeah, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, well, fair play to on that one. Well, Scott Retro Wrestling is going to be reviewing this show as well. He's just actually watching it as we're reviewing it as well. So if we can keep it on the pace you're watching it, Scott, we can actually do it match by match for you. But unfortunately, I don't think we will be here for 4.5 hours, unfortunately, for your sakes. But still, he says he just finished this match. He said it was good, but it felt too long. I can understand that feeling as well. Maybe it is slightly too long of a match, so maybe it takes away a bit of the star rating as well. Question of The Rock, with the facial hair he's got going on this match, what movie he would have been doing? Well, I guess we know what answer I'm going to say. I don't know. I haven't clue what movie was at the time, but I know Walking Tall came out, I think, around that sort of time period, not long afterwards, but I'm sure they would have filmed that long before. Hey,
give me 2 seconds. I can probably find that out for you. Hang on.
As we do that,
go for it.
We'll see. Pierre says, by the way, I think Christian had a more incredible career in AEW than in WWE. Controversial, that one. But
what was that? Sorry,
some people would agree. He said that Christian's had an incredible career, better career in AEW than WWE.
I don't know, because like he was part of one of the greatest tag teams in the Attitude Era. He was a world champion in WWE. It's hard. I think his character work has been a lot better in AEW because he's been allowed to be more of who he wants to be. But I would say he's been more successful in WWE.
I would probably think that's a good analogy at this point. Plus, Christian's only been in AEW for, was it now 3 years? I think we're compared with WWE, with all the years he was there as well. It's hard for me to say AEW, but I can understand if you enjoyed the work in AEW more, then definitely. He's done some great work in both companies, and I think that truly, I can answer that question when he's hung up the boots. Go on, NXT. I feel like you've looked up, you've got the answer for us.
Your knowledge is impressive. Walking Tall literally releases April 2nd, 2004. So it's probably going to be, he's probably finished up filming. He was available to do the match. I don't think he does another film now till next year or whatever. So yeah, your knowledge on point, mate.
Bought that DVD as well. I did enjoy that one with Johnny Knoxville.
Did I?
It's a short film, but it's a good film. If it's on any social platform, I recommend checking out to anyone that's not seen it. Tino's time in the house, ladies and gentlemen. No matter what time it is in the world, it is always Tino's time. Even if you've actually changed your clocks forward in the last weekend, it's still Tino's time. Of course, that's in the UK, and of course, across in Europe, we still have a few weeks to go. But in the meantime, it's not a match we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame very quickly, just very, very quickly, because I've got the names listed for the Hall of Fame 2004. And Jesus Christ, this has to be one of the most stacked Hall of Fames ever. Let's just go through the names quickly. Greg the Hammer Valentine, Don Morocco, Junkyard Dog, Big John Studd, Superstar Billy Graham, Sergeant Slaughter, Tito Santana, Harley Race, Jesse the Body Ventura, Pete Rose, the first in the celebrity wing, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. What a lineup that is for the Hall of Fame. I've got to say, wow.
Dude, the thing is, this is what I mean by Hall of Fame back in the day. They obviously just crammed it all in way too quickly. Like that there, you've probably got at least 4 or 5 headliners for a Hall of Fame. Like, you think about it, Big John Studd, Harley Race, Superstar Billy Graham, Sergeant Slaughter, they're headliners you could have headlining on the Hall of Fame. And they're all just thrown in this 1 year. Like, dude, absolutely stacked. I mean, to be honest, I think Jesse the Body Ventura used this more as a political campaign than he does for anything else. But yeah, man, absolutely stacked Hall of Fame.
He did indeed, yeah. We'll make a quick mention of his appearance later in the show, which was totally unnecessary. Scott Retro Wrestling actually thinks the 2005 class tops it. Retro, if you can put us the names in there. We'd like to know the names of the 2005 crop. Certainly would be interesting to see. And Mike Tannenhouse, Mike says that Bobby Heenan's speech in 2004 is one of the best speeches ever. Absolutely incredible stuff indeed. But I'd love to have seen that speech actually. If it is available somewhere, hopefully on the network, I would actually probably get out of my way to go and watch that, because certainly is one of my favorites back in the day.
List, by the way.
Give it to us.
Hogan, Piper, Cowboy Bob Orton, Jimmy Hart, Paul Orndorff, Nikolai Volkov, and Iron Sheik. And for me, 2004 still smacks that. I think that's because 2004 is literally double the amount of entries.
It's tough because there was some great entries in both. Do I have to choose? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to let our subscribers choose. I'm going to let our comments choose. So you can all choose, and I'm going to be swaying whatever's the most popular vote. Not that I usually do that, but I will do that today. But yeah, 2004 is a really stacked lineup. But to be fair, 2005 does sound pretty good as well. We'll move on in the meantime, though, from away from the Hall of Fame. And obviously, we're going to be moving on to the first women's match of the evening. The Playboy evening gown match. Now, this one is not a long one. This one is only 2.5 minutes long. In fact, I think the promo was longer before the match, to be honest. It's Sable and Torrie Wilson defeating Stacy, Keibler, and Miss Jackie. Of course, just for a bit of context for everybody, Sable and Torrie Wilson were both together in the Playboy issue that was actually building up to WrestleMania, which is why they're a team for this. And of course, Sable gets on the mic before the match starts, says, of course, they were in their evening gowns, that they felt uncomfortable. So they would actually, with the crowd's approval, would like to compete without them. Of course, well, this is the mid 2000s, and it's a young, well, say male demographic 18 to 30 audience, let's just say, went wild for this. But with a crowd approval, we see then everyone go to the lingerie. Obviously, Stacy does the same as well. Miss Jackie is the one that doesn't want to. She tries to walk away, but she's pulled back into the ring. Of course, she's stripped for the match to start. You can imagine Jerry Lawler on commentary. It is unbearable, even for 2.5 minutes. But Torrie Wilson and Stacy do the bulk of the match. And I've got to say, there was an impressive crossbody from Torrie from the top rope. One thing I just would like to mention, actually, with regards to that, because Torrie does pick up the win with her team with a roll up on Miss Jackie just to finish that off. But yeah, I mean, Torrie Wilson was recently on Chris Van Vliet's podcast. He did an interview with her, and she said that she's not, they weren't full-time trained professional wrestlers back then. A lot of them were doing valets and doing, if you want, the bikini contests and all the rest of it. They usually, when they had matches like this, like they're thrown into a match on this show here, they were shown things of what they were told, what they wanted to be done in the match, and they were given very little time to learn it. It's kind of like, you're going to do this and you will learn this, and that's what they'll do on the build up to that show, and then they will go and do it. For that, and knowing that they have not actually been trained as full professional wrestlers, first off, if they had done, I think there was a couple of spots in it that show that actually they probably would have been pretty decent. But at the same time, I look at it and say that, it's kind of impressive when you think that people do this all the time and train all the time. But these go and have a couple of minute match, and we see Torrie do a body splash off the top rope and get caught and do the body slam pretty darn well.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the evening gown part away from this, it's actually just like an okay women's match. Like, I'll be honest with you, I've probably seen more women's matches in more recent times that have felt more sloppy than what this actually was. I mean, like you said, you have that great crossbody spot, and then there's the spot where it's Wilson and Keibler that they do a bunch of pin reversals, and it's like, that's really hard to do. And the fact that these guys don't wrestle and they're able to pull this spot off and make it look half decent for guys that don't wrestle often or don't wrestle full time, it's impressive. It's just a shame that it's everything else that ruins it. The fact that it's a Playboy evening gown match, and yeah, you can tell that this is essentially what they do now. With you go the what do you call it? The sponsored matches. This is essentially was a sponsored match. This was the Playboy match, whereas
Yeah.
before we've had the Mountain Dew match, and this is what this spot was, and it was horrific, but it was, like I said, I can't complain. I can't knock them. I can only knock what WWE produced.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with what you just said there. And I've got to say, I was got to stand corrected, by the way. Scott Retro Wrestling, thank you for correcting me. I do like when I get the corrections here. It was Taz and Michael Cole on commentary. Of course, Taz steals Jerry Lawler's line saying puppies. So heard puppies, but it come from Taz. But obviously, they're still told to say the same spiel and basically sound the drawling for about 2 or 3 minutes and seeing women for the first time. It's quite horrendous, to be fair. But yeah, all in all, Sable and Torrie picking up the win. And what would be your, dare I say, star rating for this match?
I was harsh and I gave it a 1/4 star just because of the 2 decent spots that were in the match. Like I said, I've just knocked this down completely for the fact that of what it was, being essentially a bra and panties match, which is what they were back in the day. So yeah, I gave it a 1/4 star.
Meltzer agrees with you. Just going to say that very quickly. But yeah, I kind of have a similar vibe of it, really. Just purely because of the fact that we know how times are different now, thankfully, and we're grateful for it. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Tina Gumson says, I never thought of that. You're absolutely right. This is a sponsorship match. It's very true indeed. I think it's a very wise comment there indeed from NXT earlier on. C Nation in the house as well. So he's going to go to SmackDown this Friday. We'll see The Rock in person. He's so excited. We are excited for you, CD.
Awesome.
Hope we have a great time this Friday at SmackDown. Of course, he was supposed to go to Raw in January. This was the show we got to go to instead. God, I love that indeed. We'll move on in the meantime. And of course, we do see Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit backstage. Eddie is proud of Chris, whatever happens. And this is where Benoit says that it's his night. He believes in himself. And Guerrero says that he wanted to bring out that fire. The guy that fought every night in Japan. And Eddie Guerrero believes in Chris Benoit to win the main event. Not so much more you can share on that. But what we can talk about is the Cruiserweight Open next now. Chavo Guerrero wins here to retain his championship. Of course, there were 10 cruiserweights involved in this match. And just to give you, if we thought that the last match we're probably being a bit dumpy on, we're going to be a bit on this one as well, because this match in total is about 10 minutes and there is 10 wrestlers here in a gauntlet match. Now, we just had, we're going to go into just current just for a second. We had Monday Night Raw this past week. Go on.
Only 9 of them compete.
Yes.
That's the worst part. It's a 10 wrestler match, but only 9 compete.
Yes, that is true. But I mean, we had Raw this past week, 6 people in a gauntlet match, and they had about 33 minutes to shine. This has 10 minutes. Each wrestler has about 60 seconds to get themselves over in a match before they are eliminated. It's basically burying an entire division. I think that's basically what to say, because if we're going to go through the details of what happens in that match, it's basically the pinfalls, because that's what it might as well be.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that some of them don't even get 60 seconds, like I'm pretty sure Funaki gets rolled up in 3 seconds from getting in the ring. So do you know what I mean? I think some people got a couple more, maybe an extra 30 seconds elsewhere, because some of these guys are in and out in like less than, well, Funaki's case, 3 seconds. It is shocking, man. Like I said, what a way to absolutely ruin a whole division, especially when you've got the, like, I don't mind me stealing this from you, but I'm just going to run through the competitors quickly. When you've got Ultimo Dragon, Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, and Jamie Noble as 4 of them, and just add for the rest of them in Chavo Guerrero, Nunzio, Tajiri, Akiro, who's the one who doesn't even compete because he gets disqualified somehow, Shannon Moore, and yeah, just like I said, what a way to bury a complete division.
Literally does so. Let's go through the matches very quickly. Obviously, you've gone through all the competitors. Scott Retro Wrestling, you're in the comments, and NXT, you might know answer this. Akiro, is that Jimmy Wang Yang?
I don't think so, no. I don't know who that is, actually. I didn't even recognize the guy. I haven't got a Scooby who it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll see who it might have been. But I do agree with Pierre, by the way. All of them were great cruiserweights. And the PA asking the question, was the final of this match Chavo versus Rey Mysterio? It was the final of this match. And yes, it is Jimmy Wang Yang who's playing Akiro at this moment. So another great cruiserweight, of course. But yeah, not given that time to shine. In fact, he's the one that doesn't compete actually completely in this match. So Ultimo Dragon and Shannon Moore kick things off. Ultimo wins with it gets the stunner position, flips over into like a DDT. It's kind of like a sliced bread kind of looking move. I didn't catch what they said, what the actual move was called, but Ultimo Dragon gets the pinfall there. Ultimo Dragon versus Jamie Noble. Noble wins via using a guillotine. Dragon taps out. So yeah, Dragon's in the match for about all of less than 2 minutes. We've got Jamie Noble versus Funaki. As you mentioned, he's only in there for 3 seconds. A crossbody off the top rope is reversed into an immediate elimination. We didn't see Jamie Noble versus Nunzio. Nunzio is pulled off the ring apron to the floor and is counted out. I want to put my head in my hands at this point. Billy Kidman comes in versus Jamie Noble. We've seen Nunzio pull Noble to the floor. Kidman tries to murder himself by standing on the top rope and doing a shooting star press to the floor. He's lucky not to break his neck. But he does pick up the victory. He beats Jamie Noble with a VK bomb from the second rope, which is pretty much like a sky-high power bomb style move. But the commentary did announce it as a VK bomb. We then get to Rey Mysterio versus Kidman. Here we go. Now we're talking. But Chavo distracts the ref, and Akiro hits Rey. Billy Kidman actually lands a VK bomb in the ring for a 2 count. But then we see Rey Mysterio hit the code red from the top rope and gets the pinfall victory over Billy Kidman. Then we get Mysterio versus Tajiri. This is where Akiro holds Rey Mysterio, but gets the mist in the face from Tajiri. Rey rolls up Tajiri for the pinfall, and then Tajiri kicks Rey after the bell when Chavo is distracting the referee. Akiro, I believe, has either forfeited or been disqualified for getting involved in the match. Wikipedia says one thing, and it's Steve. We have said another thing. But that leaves us then with Mysterio and Chavo Guerrero, and we see Rey do a dive over the referee to the floor, doing a senton onto Chavo Sr. Of course, that is Chavo Guerrero's dad, who's actually coming into ringside. But Chavo then gets a rob on Rey Mysterio, and Chavo Sr. is holding on to Chavo, so he's able to retain his title. A lot of detail. It's pretty much the entire match given to us in about a minute or two, and yeah, it's about 10 minutes long. Your thoughts of burying the entire cruiserweight division?
I mean, aside sorry, I've had a run in here. Like someone's decided to be a distraction during my time here. This one, but yeah, dude. Like apart from Billy Kidman trying to kill himself, and then Nunzio does a decent drop kick, and then Chavo Guerrero Sr. nearly drops Rey Mysterio. It's just a hodgepodge of cruiserweight wrestling. Like it's what I expect for ruthless aggression at like late attitude era style matches. But like this, to me, this is a TV match. This is like genuinely why, again, this is a WrestleMania and you're burying your whole cruiserweight division in what's the match time? Like 7, 8 minutes, 9 minutes? And it's like, it's absolutely shocking to do it on a pay-per-view of WrestleMania's caliber.
For me, the way that they could have made this better is by simply just put everybody in the match at the same time. They could have all done big spots, flying over the top rope to the floor, have a proper 10-minute match, and you could have just had a moment where everyone was taken out of the floor from a big dive. There's 2 people left in the ring. Could have been still Rey and Chavo, and then Chavo Sr. helps hold Rey down. And I think that could have simply got the same effect, same job. Everyone would have had some time to shine rather than actually doing it in a quick pinfall fashion. Everyone having a flurry of my turn. Okay, now I'm eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the thing that irritates me about this match card is like I said, you got them 2 tag team fatal 4-way matches, and like I said, we've got a 10-minute gauntlet match that just genuinely doesn't make sense. And like you said, if they'd have just booked it as even a battle royal, do a 10-man battle royal over the top elimination, and then at least you could have got rid of like 6 or 7 of them in the first couple of minutes, and then had like a decent sort of fatal 4-way in for the last few minutes. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's poor lazy booking, but I expect it from this time period because obviously cruiserweight wrestling was never a big thing for Vince back in the day. So this is the typical way that they get booked, and I think this is where I come to my match rating as well, where I turn around and say that I gave this a 2-star on the pure basis that this is what I expected from a cruiserweight match on TV. Like this amount of time, this amount of just absolute crazy like spots. Like I said, Billy Kidman nearly killing himself because he can't do a shooting star press when he's got more time to rotate from like the outside. Like this was the other thing as well. Why is he doing it off the rope instead of the turnbuckle? That was the other thing I couldn't get. Like Billy Kidman, you do this move off the turnbuckle in every match you do it. Yet for some reason, at Mania, you want to do it off the top rope, and it's like in the middle. Just absolute lunacy.
He'd bulked up as well at this period as well. Like you see, he's trying to almost get out of the cruiserweight division, get himself up to the next level. It feels at this point, but unfortunately, it doesn't sort of work out long term with that. But yeah, all in all, I kind of feel the same with you, really. I mean, look, in ring quality, the moves and that they're all perfectly fine. There's not really much wrong in this match. There's a couple of good, nice spots in it. I think my favorite spot is Rey Mysterio doing the code red to Billy Kidman to get the pinfall victory. But all in all, I think it's a burial of the vision. So I'm going to go for a 1.5 star just because of the fact that I'm not really a fan of what the match, how it was represented. If you're going to do a match like this, give it some time to work. That's all I'll say. But CDR says, first off, cute dog. Cute dog, and I have to agree. If you like dogs, hit the like button on this video. It really does go a long way. Anyone that doesn't, we know that you don't like dogs. That's clearly the motto there. And that's how we'll drive up our algorithm. But CD says that the Cruiserweight division in 2016 to 2022 is way better than the Cruiserweight division around this time. Perhaps booking-wise, perhaps I would agree with that because obviously they get more time, the Cruiserweight division in that second era. But I wouldn't necessarily say the quality is much different.
I don't know, because 205 did have some quality matches. Like, if I'm thinking like Buddy Murphy, Cedric Alexander, Adrian Neville, like that period of time for wrestling for 205 was like I loved it. I thought it was great. Like the Cruiserweight Classic that we got, just some outstanding quality wrestling. Like this is just a thing. Like I said, hopefully it will change in the future. Maybe Triple H will be brave enough to bring back the Cruiserweight Championship, which is what I really hope for. Hopefully going forward, it will be the Cruiserweight wrestling will get more of a recognition than it has done ever in WWE.
I would hope so. I hope that their time will come, obviously. And, they didn't have the best time on Raw back then. It used to be a filler moment when it was on Raw, but the 205 Live, I totally agree, was fantastic. I just think the superstar quality, the likes of Tajiri and, Nunzio was fantastic. Watching them in ECW was amazing. Super crazy to come and join the pack as well after a while. Like, Rey Mysterio as well is one of the GOATs, the best cruiserweights of all time. Ultimo Dragon as well. Go back to WCW days. When they have time, they are incredible. And that's what makes me think maybe I lean more towards that era. But hey, look, they've been booked, but they've not been booked well in WWE at that time period. So I can see why that comment has been made. Having them standing around the ring makes it feel weird as well. Scott Retro Wrestling have to agree with that. And Pierre agrees with the idea of everyone being in the ring for the match as well. Ray starts the match. But goes through the entire division, only to get screwed by Chavo is what he would have done to Scott Retro Wrestling. Fair enough. I think that's a fair way to do it as well. Booking. Yeah, would make sense. Yeah, there's some logical booking in that. CD says, do you remember when Hornswoggle won the Cruiserweight Championship? I tried to block it out of my memory, if I'm being brutally honest. But yeah, there you go. It is what it is. And just a quick trivia question. We'll take it very quickly because we're going to move on to the next match. Do we know which contestant from Tough Enough 2015 are still in WWE today? I do see in the comments.
Sonya Deville?
She is one of them. Do you know the other one?
I don't know, no. So say that was the only one I could think of because I knew she was in at the same time as Mandy. Oh, Chelsea Green.
Chelsea Green. There you go. Great trivia question there. Liking that indeed. Thank you for that, Pierre. We'll move on in the meantime, though. We're going to go now to the video package for what will be our next match, which, let's be fair, oh dear, this is one of the big disasters of this show. Goldberg defeating Brock Lesnar with Stone Cold Steve Austin as a special guest referee. We are here, ladies and gentlemen. We've been waiting to talk about this one. We have the video package to kick things off. Brock interrupting Goldberg's interview at the Royal Rumble because Goldberg had been given the number entry spots, but Brock said that isn't important. The reason is because Brock had just retained his championship and the interview should be with him. We get to the Royal Rumble, of course. Brock actually screws Goldberg in the Rumble match, hitting an F5, distracting Goldberg as well, so Kurt Angle could eliminate him. We see Steve Austin says he's got good friends in Sacramento, and of course, one of his good friends give him tickets to No Way Out, which just happened to be where the SmackDown branded show was going to be, because Goldberg was a Raw superstar, Lesnar was a SmackDown superstar, and of course, I mentioned he was the champion. Well, Goldberg goes to No Way Out, spears Brock Lesnar, costs him the title, and Eddie Guerrero wins the championship and No Way Out 2004. Brock wants Goldberg at WrestleMania at this point. Vince says, I think officials can control the action, though, and this is where Steve Austin comes out, and he is actually made the special guest referee. And we see Brock Lesnar F5 Steve Austin, blaming him for giving Goldberg the ticket of why he was cost the championship. And we see him actually take Austin's wheels as well, that he goes rolling around in. And of course, then we see Austin and Brock brawl on SmackDown. Not going to lie, bit me was more hyped to see Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar after that video package.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to remind me, how did people find out that this is Brock's last match for WWE? Is it already announced that he's going back to NFL or something, which is the reason why everyone poos all over him? And like, from the crowd, literally from the word the bell rings, the crowd are just, excuse my French, they're shitting all over it, man. Like, literally, they're just booing this the whole way through, and it's you sit there and think to yourself, why did they even bother with this?
Do you remember the days of the internet where you used to have to sit there and wait for it to kick in? It was like those sort of days. That's pretty much what people did to get their wrestling gossip. Meltzer was around in those times. I think the word got out. Everyone that was probably, the hardcore fan base at this point in and around WrestleMania, those are the ones that usually travel there. We see like a video package of people that's traveled from all over the world, people from Ireland, people from the UK, I think people from Australia as well, to get to that point because they're that dedicated to wrestling and they're aware of that news. And obviously going into Madison Square Garden, and obviously, Goldberg's contract is up as well. Oh boy, it's a rough time, like you say, because from minute one, they're crapping the hell out of this match, and to go through the match, we'll go through it, and then we can really crap all over ourselves. We can have our own turn. You sold our chance. Kick off the match. We get the na 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 na. Na 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 na, hey, goodbye. Chance at Lesnar as well. And that's where JR actually brings up on commentary as well that there were rumors of Brock leaving WWE to go to the NFL. So it's on the rumors, and apparently fans seem to have heard it. We hear the fans will only chant for Steve Austin. Is the only person that's cheered is the referee in the match. Something's going wrong when only the referee is the only popular one in it. Probably WrestleMania 27 with Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler is another example of that as well. And Steve.
And I was just saying, yeah, I was just agreeing, yeah, just a little bit. Like, dude, like I said, this is booked horrifically. Like, carry on, and I was like, I'll say my piece afterwards. Like, I'll give you like my actual favorite part of this match.
So, I'm gonna give you what happens in the match, but I'm kind of gonna tighten with my narrative opinion as well, because I think, to be honest, they stare at each other for a long time, just taking in the crap from the crowd. And it gets to the point that the crowd just chant, "This match sucks." They're losing patience quickly. And I kind of get the feeling that both of them kind of go, they're booing us both. They know what's going on. We don't want to do this. And we kind of get like two lazy tie-ups with both of them when there's like no advantage. It feels like zero effort made from both of them. We get shoulder blocks then, and no one's budging, and then they both actually go down when they collide with each other. And JR actually makes reference then that the crowd is getting impatient. And to be fair, sitting at home, I was getting impatient as well, because this is a long show and this is a good opportunity to have a nap if you want one. But finally, we get a move in the match. I'm going to say, if you want to do where you're trying to build something up and then have a sudden impact, that is the one positive of this match, because finally, Goldberg decides to military press slam into a spinebuster spear type move on Brock Lesnar. To be fair, that is a brutal, fun-looking spot. Goldberg misses a spear and goes into the post, and Lesnar gets advantage. Very basic moves, as I say. It feels like Lesnar cannot be asked. It feels like it's Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania 32 all over again. He cannot be bothered. There are rest holds galore as well. Lawler is explaining the theory as well of the reason why the fans have turned on Goldberg as well, with the Goldberg sucks chance, is apparently the theory of that actually, well, fans like Raw and some fans like SmackDown. They boo the other show. So that's why they're actually SmackDown fans, and that's why they're booing Goldberg. That is not why they're doing it. It's because they know they are going. Goldberg gets back into the match and lands a spear. We see a kick out at 2. There's arguing with Goldberg and Steve Austin over the count, which then means Lesnar gets to hit an F5 on Bill Goldberg, a 2 count. And guess what? There is arguing with Brock Lesnar and Steve Austin over the count. Lesnar then goes for a spear. Yes, right. Lesnar goes for the spear. Misses, goes into the ring post. We then get a spear from Goldberg. and a reluctant jackhammer. And then, we get Goldberg with the win. At the end of the match, of course, we get the famous scene of Lesnar flipping off the crowd as he's leaving the company, kind of giving his 2 cents of the reaction he got. And of course, gives it to Austin as well. Austin hits a stunner. And then we get, of course, the infamous beer routine with Austin and Goldberg. But Austin's being cheered, Goldberg is not. And of course, we get we said it's a dream match we'd like to see at some point, me and you, on a video that's not been released yet, Austin and Goldberg. But Goldberg doesn't sell that stunner pretty darn well.
No, it's an absolute hodgepodge. Like, for me, the best parts of the match were at the start, Goldberg, Brock mocks Goldberg and goes, "No," he did it. I just started creasing up. I was like, "That's so good!" Like, I was going to get a screen grab of it today and have it as my background, and just throw a picture of Brock going, "No." Oh, and then the second best part was the ending when it finished, because I didn't have to watch this no more. Stone Cold stunning the both of them is literally making the best of a worst case situation. It was kind of like, how can we make this bearable? Put Austin in it, let Austin stun him, and the crowd will pop for it because it'll be huge. Genuinely, that's what it was. This was horrific, dude. It was like, I've never seen a crowd just absolutely trash all over a match before it's even started. And like you said, there's a couple of decent spots, like the military press into the spear spinebuster kind of looked, it was okay. But yeah, just like, I can't understand why you'd still put this match on, or like I said, depending on how it was leaked that Brock was leaving, man. Like, I don't know, I just wouldn't have put this on. Like I said, you could have saved yourself 10 minutes.
I think literally got Brock Lesnar put in this request like not long before WrestleMania. I think that was if you go back into the history books of it, I think that it's close to the day, and this match has been built since the Royal Rumble, and I think they kind of feel, well, we've got to go ahead with it. I mean, no one to know, obviously, but maybe the result may have even been different had Brock been sticking around. If Goldberg was the one leaving, it would have made sense for Lesnar to have gone over in this match, and actually he'd be the one who's the future star, putting away Bill Goldberg. Maybe he would have been actually booked to go against Austin next. Who knows? Maybe Austin could have been dragged out of retirement for one more match because, well, I know Austin didn't want to do business with Lesnar back in the day, but because the storyline didn't make sense, seems to make a lot more sense in the build-up of what they were doing here. But at the same time, I mean, don't swear very often on these streams, but it's an absolute shit show. It's the drizzling shits, this one. It's, thank goodness they really got to do this in 2016 and 2017, because they took what this match was meant to be, because this is a match that's meant to be explosive and quick. They did that in Survivor Series. There wasn't anything, it was too quick. It was blink and you miss it. But with the WrestleMania 33 match they did, it's much better. You know, they actually have times where it's about 5 minutes. They're going through barriers. It's spear F5. That's what people want to see. That's the best Goldberg matches out there, are the quick squash matches. To do this match, which is 13 odd minutes long, I'm going to get the timer up for you now, is 13 minutes and 42 seconds. That's not what you need from this match, especially when they're staring at one another for ages. I think they're looking for like a Rock Hogan moment, but no one's giving it to them. They're just giving the middle finger instead. Hurry up and get to the next match. 1.25 star is from Dave Meltzer on this one. I've got to say, I think it's actually a complete dud for me. I'm going to go slightly higher though, just because I enjoyed the military press spot into the spear spinebuster move. So I'm going to give it a 0.5. But yeah, this is wrong. This is just bad for so many reasons. Then, to be fair, I think we could spend an hour talking about how bad this match was if we really, really wanted to dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was generous and gave it 1.5 just because we got some sort of a wrestling match out of it. But like I said, I think when you've got a crowd that's so disinterested in two people being inside a ring, there's no saving it. And the fact that they tried to, like, the commentators tried to cover it over with it's some people like SmackDown, some people like Raw. It's like, dude, this ain't Survivor Series. That's not an excuse. And yet that's all I seem to feel with this whole Mania, was that it was booked more like Survivor Series than Survivor Series was.
Yeah, obviously back in the day they didn't do that so much with the Raw. They do that, the odd one match with Raw versus SmackDown, but here was the three of them on WrestleMania at this point. But totally get what you're saying. Scott Retro Wrestling at this point actually went, I've seen what the next match. He went, oh Jesus, he knew what was coming. We're actually keeping up with Scott at the minute as well. We might overtake it though very soon. So we've got a couple of matches we're going to breeze through. CD says 5-star classic match of the night, lol. PS says that's a most disappointing match ever. I think that certainly could be the case. And it pretty much
he's never seen. He's obviously never seen Mae Young versus Jacqueline.
I think this is more disappointing than that. That match may have been worse, but this was hyped more. I think, I don't think we had as high expectations for that match. Yeah. But Brock and Goldberg against the crowd of New York, it might as well become that at this point. They knew that Brock was leaving. Brock was supposed to go over, and then he announced he was going to go to the NFL, and he almost made it to the NFL as well that year. But hey, it is what it is on that one there. And yeah, Pierre just going to say that a big dream match would have been Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar. But hey, it is what it is. But we're going to move on in the meantime at this point anyway, and we're going to go on to Vince McMahon, one controversial name to another. Basically, Vince thanking the fans. It's unnecessary and unneeded, but I guess it doesn't take too long. It says this wouldn't, without you would have never begun. So we're saying it's beginning again. Without you, wouldn't have even started. So he thanks them on behalf of everybody else.
For me, he still doesn't explain what's beginning all again, though. That was the one thing. He says the tagline, and I'm like, what, Vince? What's starting here again? What? You've not explained it to me. I still don't know what's beginning again.
Wrestling is beginning again. But one thing that could be beginning again is the tag team titles again. It's the tag team division. If you want to copy and paste the last matches of this one with different teams and you think you're watching a repeat, that's pretty much, you'd be forgiven. It's a different match, but it's exactly the same as what happened before. It's Too Cool, Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty defeating the world's greatest tag team, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas. Shout out to Table Blaze who gave some love to the world's greatest tag team at the start of the video. APA and the Basham brothers in the sudden death fatal 4-way. And of course, Too Cool retaining the WWE Tag Team Championships. The only things that make this a little bit different, it's Scotty 2 Hotty that's been beaten down to the hot tag to Rikishi. Bradshaw does a bit of the creative offense in this one. There's a 4-way slam to one of the Bashams, throwing him over the top rope onto the floor onto the world's greatest tag team. And then the other Basham receives a clothesline from hell, but Rikishi gives Bradshaw a Samoan drop, and then Rikishi basically sits on the other Basham to pick up the victory. Thoughts, anything else to add? Star ratings? This one for me is just filler. It's literally like 6 minutes long. There's not, we said the last one, they don't have enough time to shine. These guys even have less time to shine.
I gave this one a 2.25 just for the fact that it went pure chaos towards the end. And like, this is why I'm glad they don't do these matches, right? Because literally the first two people to start are Shelton Benjamin and Bradshaw. Bradshaw is tagged out. Shelton pins Bradshaw and the referee starts counting, but Bradshaw's been tagged out. And I'm like, this is why these matches are pointless, because they don't make sense. And then when it got to the end of the match, excuse my French, I completely lost track of who the other legitimate wrestler was. Like, I knew Rikishi was one of the legitimate guys, couldn't tell you who the other one was. And I was like, no clue. I mean, it got a bit crazy, but otherwise, just a complete waste of time. And exactly like the first tag team match, it was completely pointless. Could have just not been on the show. So I gave it a 2.25 to be generous, because I thought it was a bit better than the first one, just slightly.
Fair enough. I can, with the finish and stuff and how they do it for the last couple of minutes, I would agree, because I have a little bit more detail than what I had in the first one. Yeah. I am biased because I prefer RVD as a wrestler to anyone else in these matches, but at the same time, if we're going to be brutally honest, this match is slightly better of the two. I only gave the other one, I think, was like 1 point something star rate, so I'm going to give this a 2. Everyone turned up to work, they did their job, they only got 6 minutes and 3 seconds, bless them, so they can't really do much more with it. But one interesting note, that this is the last show that Bradshaw, and he has a couple of standout moments that make this match better. This is the last show we have before he turns into John Bradshaw Layfield. Of course, he does that with the SmackDown draft. He changes his gimmick, his character needs to go off to be a single star, and within about a month or two, he's challenging Eddie Guerrero for the world title. So, hats off to him. He does what he needs to do in the APA to stand out.
Still one of the best clotheslines in the business, though. Like, literally, legitimately, if you said to me, would you take a Bradshaw clothesline? Nope. Never, because they look horrific.
Not enough money in the world, my friend. Not enough money in the world. But we'll move on in the meantime, and we will go on talking about Jesse the Body Ventura. This is, when it's a 4.5 hour WrestleMania, you think to yourself, you can cut the filler where you need to, maybe 1 or 2 matches. Jesse Ventura interviewing Donald Trump at ringside is something I really didn't need. Even if it's for a few minutes, it's still a few minutes too long. Asking Donald Trump what WrestleMania means to him, because Donald Trump actually held an Atlantic City WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5. Obviously, he cares about WrestleMania. He was trying to get it there 2 times, and we'd seen he'd been close to Vince McMahon through the years. So we didn't need this, but he says, he's enjoying the show with his son. So okay, great, brilliant, move on. And basically, Jesse Ventura just wants to know if a wrestler was going to politics, would he support him? And Trump says yes, he would. So Jesse Ventura basically saying that he would go to try and be president in 2008. Spoiler alert: it doesn't happen. But anything to talk about that? It just was a waste of time, wasn't it?
Dude, literally, the fact that the Rock has got more chance of being in the White House than Jesse Ventura sums it all up, man. Yeah, it just literally was a dodgy, half-assed campaign for Jesse Ventura to get back into politics again. So, yeah, like I said, could have cut it. I don't know why it's still on I don't know why it's still on the network. It's something you literally could just cut out. I'm pretty sure, down the line, someone or somewhere will go, yeah, let's cut that out. There's no point in that being on there.
Scott, if you're watching, skip that bit, my friend. Just save yourself some time. You don't need to see that bit. You really don't. But what you do need to see is the Women's Championship match. Victoria defeating Molly Holly in a hair versus hair match, or as we like to call it, a Jonesy special. This is only got a few minutes on the card, actually. It's a bit of a shame for it, actually, because only 4 minutes and 53 seconds long. Look, I mean, ultimately, a sunset flip powerbomb is done from the second rope for Molly to get a 2 count. Molly then attempts a Widow's Peak, which of course is Victoria's finisher. Victoria, though, of course, it's her move. She knows what she's going to do. She counters it, gets a backslide for a pinfall victory over Molly. And of course, Molly tries to escape after the match because she knows she's going to get her head shaved. Leads to another brawl. Molly gets Victoria in the chair, but the razor wasn't plugged in. Bad timing. Victoria gets hairspray, sprays it in Molly's face, and then, of course, goes face first into the table. Molly then, out cold, is actually strapped to the barber's chair, and the hair shaving begins. And, of course, it goes on until past the Eddie Guerrero Kurt video package, which we'll talk about in a few minutes' time. Of course, that's when we actually see Molly Holly shaved near enough bald, certainly a skinhead. But I've got to say, there is a little bit of inside information I know about this. Molly Holly was desperate to be on WrestleMania 20. She wanted to be on this show like nobody else. And she said, I'm even willing to shave my head if you'll put me on this show. So that is why this happens, because she said she's willing to do this to get on the show. They went, well, hair for hair? Okay, we'll do it. So, and I feel the irony as well is that Kurt Angle is the next superstar to come out through the curtain when Molly's just had this done. Kurt Angle, of course, had his head famously shaved by Edge at Judgment Day in 2002. So just thought it was a side note that Kurt just looking over going, yeah, that was once me. And I still sport that gimmick now as well. The fact he's one of the few wrestlers that keeps the shaved head going on after having it shaved losing a match. But still, it is what it is. It's just less than 5 minutes. There's not too much detail, but I think that the 2 female performers are decent. Just not enough time given for the match for me to give it a proper breathing space and time to really get into it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you call it a hair versus hair match is very generous, because the fact it was only if Molly lost, she got her head shaved. Because if Victoria lost, she weren't getting her head shaved. Apparently, that's what they said during the intros. And I was like, even as a viewer, like a casual viewer, someone who's just tuned in for WrestleMania, you already know Molly Holly is losing. If only she loses, she's getting her head shaved. And it's bad. I gave this 1.5 star. It was a dead match. It was too short. And the fact that there was more interest in the part where they actually shaved her head than the actual match sums it all up. And the fact that they're still doing it past Eddie Guerrero's entrance, and he came in second after Angle. Like, the crew just come out halfway through Eddie's entrance and start taking away the barbershop, and I'm like, this is dumb. Why didn't they remove it during the set and they could just shave Molly's head out the back? Do you know what I mean? Just a stupid, pointless match that shouldn't have been on the card. But hey, props to Molly if she wants to be on Mania and doing it. Like, I suppose I should give it a 5, really, just because she was willing to go out there and go the extra mile. But yeah, I gave this a 1.5 because I just thought it was dead.
Yeah, I can see your point of view with that. I'm going to give it a 2 just because I think they could have been given more time to do something. I thought the in-ring quality of the match was fine. It's just, again, it's the time of women's wrestling. Unfortunately, they're not given the time to do anything. Like you say, yeah, the match is predictable. It's still half a Jonesy special if it's just one hair on the line, I guess. But at the same time, it's the result we expected, I suppose, from this. And all in all, they did what they need to do, and they got out of there. And like you say, there is more time, sadly, focused on the hair shaving than the match itself, which I think is a bit disappointing. But I think your February rating 1.5 star probably is what I would give it as well. Well, I will go as high as a 2 just because I'm a bit more generous, I suppose. But let's talk about what else has said. He said 1 star for that match, which is a bit of a shame. But we will go on then to the last 3 matches of the show. But just before we do, we'll quickly dive into our comments very quickly and see what people have got to say. We've got Scott Register still on Lesnar versus Goldberg at this moment. They're still staring at each other. Love it indeed. Victoria became a barber at WrestleMania 20. Yeah, it does go on for a while. Yeah. The actions of the last couple of minutes. Literally, Victoria became a barber without Brutus and Beefcake. You love to see it. But we'll move on in the meantime, as we mentioned, and we will be talking about the WWE Championship match. Eddie Guerrero defeating Kurt Angle to retain the WWE Championship here. But it's a video package as well because these two just don't simply see eye to eye and get along, said Michael Cole. Basically, Kurt Angle attacks Eddie Guerrero as Eddie Guerrero is a former drug addict. He said that he did that attack for the people, as we shouldn't have Eddie Guerrero as WWE Champion. He says, one day you'll thank me for the champion that I am. Eddie attacks Kurt, and then after that, Eddie Guerrero is arrested and told he will spend the night in jail. Again, Kurt Angle says that he's afraid that this would happen with Eddie as champion. Again, not the right role model to be as a WWE champion. Paul Heyman, of course, is the GM for SmackDown at the time, demands an apology for Eddie Guerrero. Eddie says, look, he's proud to be champion. He's proud also for the fans as well. And Heyman says he wishes he could knock sense into Eddie Guerrero. And Eddie says, look, to be fair, he could try, but he can actually beat him with 2 hands tied behind his back, which Heyman went, really? Okay, let's book that match. So we actually had Paul Heyman versus Eddie Guerrero with Eddie Guerrero 2 hands tied behind his back. As you would expect, Paul Heyman runs away, and we did see Kurt Angle doing a video via satellite. However, he wasn't in Pittsburgh as expected. Of course, he was backstage, and Eddie Guerrero sees Kurt Angle come as he goes to the entranceway. He's still got 2 hands tied behind his back, and we see pretty much Kurt Angle beats him down big time. For me, all in all, obviously, Kurt Angle was turned heel in this time because he was a babyface throughout a portion of 2000. I think through some part of 2003 he was a babyface. But all in all, for me, I kind of like the way they tried to build this match in a way, because Eddie Guerrero is actually a champion that everyone wants to get behind. Everyone loves the logic of lie, cheat, and steal, but it just seems like it's that natural, easy way to go. The fact that, he has that method of how he is when he goes to these matches. He'll throw the steel chair at the wrestler and pretend he's been hit. It's not the role model that you should have, someone that's a squeaky clean, drink your milk Kurt Angle. It feels like it's the right sort of storyline to do between the two of these.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Kurt, like, in the way that he tries to portray himself and be like, this guy is a liar, he's a cheater, he steals, you shouldn't like, he's basically saying that you shouldn't like this guy because he is all the things that are wrong in the world. And the fact that you cheer him and the fact that he's world champion is kind of like, it's a crime in itself. And whereas, like you said, Angle is like, yeah, drink your milk, say your prayers, gold medal, all out standard, like, do you know what I mean? American, do you know what I mean? The definition of a national hero kind of thing. And it's like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way they built this up. It's just, it was the way that the match goes on that is a bit confusing for me, because it kind of like, it almost tells 2 different stories. But like I said, we'll talk about that after you've gone through the notes. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate it. Like this, for me, this is where WrestleMania 20 starts. From here till the finish, this is where you get your money's worth if you'd have bought a ticket for this, or you'd bought it on pay-per-view.
It's a fair argument, because two of the best matches of the night for me are in these 3 matches. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing I would say on the flip side of this, though, Kurt Angle is also a hypocrite. He's also a liar, because he's almost as bad as Eddie Guerrero, if because of the fact that actually he's willing to do these unhanded tactics to to get an advantage, to get ahead coming into this pay-per-view, to get this championship match. However, like you say, once we come into the match itself, it's quite a different story. And I've got to say, it's an interesting story when you look at this. I think people are going to have an interesting way of whether they enjoy this match or not, because it comes down, I'm going to make a comparison right now to a different sport, if you will. If you're a snooker fan or a pool fan, obviously a pool fan is, you've got a few balls to smack down and the games are over thick and fast, or a game of snooker is much more tactical. It's very slow based. Some matches can go on for a very long time. And it felt like it was almost like that, almost like a game of chess between these two. It's a very slow build. Obviously, Kurt Angle started with his ground-based work on Eddie Guerrero, working on the ribs. Eddie attempts to jump the top rope to the outside, but crashes into the barricade. Kurt continues to work on those injured ribs, lands some belly-to-belly suplexes. Kurt then attempts one top rope one, but Eddie actually manages to push Kurt off, attempts a frog splash but misses. Eddie then counters on an angle slam and turns it into an arm drag, gets some momentum. This is where the pace starts to quicken after we've seen quite a few of rest holds of Kurt Angle. But every time Eddie starts to sort of get a bit of momentum very quickly, Kurt Angle seems to be quite superior throughout this entire match. Something that you should know, Kurt Angle has about 80% of the dominance at the moment of this one. It's basically whoever plays West Ham in a football match at the moment. Angle actually counters the Three Amigos. I knew you'd like that. Kurt Angle counters the Three Amigos into an ankle lock. Eddie Guerrero then actually lands a drop kick and actually goes to do a top rope to do a frog splash. Kurt runs up and does a belly to belly. He then does a pinfall to 2 count. Another ankle lock attempt on Eddie Guerrero. Eddie counters into the pin. Then we see Angle immediately get back up on top with a German suplex. Angle slam is then countered into a DDT from Eddie Guerrero. Nice looking spot, that one. Frog splash finally hits from the top rope, but Kurt kicks out at 2. Another ankle lock from Kurt Angle. Yes, you can hear that a few more times. But Eddie Guerrero forces Kurt to the floor. And then Eddie actually undoes his boot to check his ankle because he's in a lot of pain at this point. It's kind of like, I feel like he might have broke the ankle the way that Eddie's selling this, because he feels like he needs to get the boot off desperately. He feels that he won't be able to stand. He won't be able to compete. He's weakened at this point. And we see a stare down. Kurt outside the ring, staring at a weakened prey, Eddie Guerrero in the ring. And Kurt literally just chases Eddie Guerrero. Eddie's trying to get out of the ring, but Eddie gets caught. He gets put into the ankle lock once again. This time, Eddie tries to actually flick over, and this way, the boot comes off. So Kurt Angle was left standing with a boot. He goes running in, and he actually gets caught into a small package. And actually, what you see on the replay is, of course, that lie, cheat, and steal from Eddie Guerrero. Both of Eddie's feet are hooked amongst the bottom rope. So Kurt Angle has got no way of getting out. He has stole his way to a victory. It is classic Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero retains the WWE Championship in a match that's one of the longest ones on the show. This one, I think this is the second longest match, 21 minutes and 32 seconds. What were your thoughts of Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle?
I think this is a really good match, but I have 2 main issues, and one is the role that Eddie plays in this match, because I feel like at the start, despite being the WWE champion, he's playing the underdog, which is a very strange thing to see. Whereas, do you know what I mean? He's not like the underdog that's trying to defeat the power. He's the champion that's afraid, almost afraid. I don't know. It was really strange how he comes across to start with. And then my other issue with this match is the fact that, bearing in mind, Kurt Angle has been in WWE since May, I don't know, 99, but roughly whenever he started for WWE.
Yes,
And
Survivor
we
Series
know that the
99.
ankle lock. So yeah, we know that the ankle lock is a. Do you know what I mean? We know that it's a devastating move. Like, he's made loads of people tap out to it. My issue was that he done all that damage in a short period of time. And for me, I felt that should have been the story of the match, because although it's a very clever finish, and I like I said, I really enjoyed it, the way that, I mean, he undoes the boot, he loses it, the roll up, it's great. But my idea, I would have appreciated this more if that had been the story, and it would have been a case of Curtis working that ankle to the point where Eddie can no longer wear that boot because he's injured so much. And for me, it was too short of a time frame from the point of getting the ankle lock in to, I need to undo my boot to roll up pinfall. That was my only other issue. Otherwise, this is a great match. Like, luckily for me, I've had the blessing of watching this, watching it once and actually playing it, because I've been playing 2K24, and this match is the WrestleMania 20 match that's on the game. You play as Eddie Guerrero against Kurt Angle. So yeah, I've had the benefit of watching it twice and reliving it and having to do the spots and stuff. And it is a really good match, but like I said, the way Eddie's portrayed at the start as the underdog and then sort of changes towards the end, and then like I said, the finish is it's really good, but just like I said, would have preferred it if that had been the story of the match.
Yeah, I get what you're coming from with that. I mean, the only thing I will say is that I've missed out of the storyline arc. Actually, is we do notice obviously Eddie Guerrero in the aisleway at the end of the match, and obviously lie, cheat, and steal. Not only was he just trying to sell the leg, he actually was conning Kurt Angle. Nothing was wrong with the ankle; he was fine. I suppose that's kind of where it happened all of a sudden so quickly. I suppose that would be the answer to that. But I would agree in a way. But I just felt that Kurt Angle had the ankle lock on so many times. It's almost like it's not protecting the finisher, the fact that Eddie Guerrero wasn't tapping out at a certain point. And it's kind of like you say, it's a true underdog story because it's almost like Eddie, I suppose, won the championship. I suppose he doesn't win it clean when you look back at the Goldberg-Lesnar package from earlier in the show. And perhaps it's to a point that this is his first real serious, pay-per-view title defense. Is he good enough for this level? I suppose is perhaps the question mark coming in. But I didn't really get that impression with the video package of what they were portraying. And if they'd have probably been given that little bit of a storyline arc into the video package, I think I could have bought more into that storyline narrative, because I did kind of feel myself, this is very one-sided, this match. It's not actually like as back and forth as what it could be. Very technically very good match. It's a very good match. It's a very, like I said, it's a slow pace. We'll go with chess and checkers if you want, depending on what you want. You want Crash Bang Wallop, we'll have one of them coming up in the main event. But this was slow, lethargic. It built its way up into the pace that we got at the end. But all in all, I will turn around and say that I do think this is one of the better matches on this show. And where I can see your gripes and I can see your criticisms, I also feel like I remember at the time really enjoying that finish watching it in 2004. It's like one of the few things I could turn around and say, before you watch WrestleMania 20, what was something you remember from the show? I remember Eddie with the boot. That's one of the first things I would mention. So I'm a big fan of that finish.
Yeah, no, I can respect that. Yeah, it's like I said, I think this is me being too overcritical. Obviously, this is 20 years later, we're a bit more smarter to the product than what we were. And like I said, you're right. If I'd have been watching this in 2004, I'd have loved this. The result would have been great. It's like I said, I'm just being overly critical of a product that is 20 years old.
I think you're able to be, though. It's 20 years later. That's the beauty of it. That's what we're here for. You know what I mean? So, you can either do it with the ISA, or sometimes I may have a bit of rose spectacles watching the matches and kind of reliving and feeling I'm 18 years old all over again. Oh, what a glorious time. But what would be your star rating anyway for Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero?
Like I said, I gave it 3 3/4. I think I'm just being overcritical, but yeah, 3 3/4 for me.
I think that's a fair rating. I'm going to go for a 3.5 star for myself. I think that technically very, very good. I thought it was a really good match. Yeah, I mean, it's actually technically a bit lower than your rating, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I don't know reasons why I've not gone higher. Really, I just think there are matches that I've given 5 stars to, and I just don't think this goes to that level. Although it's a great match and it's a good story, I suppose it is a bit slower paced in places, and I think I do prefer faster paced wrestling when it comes to the grander stage of the whole thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we'll move on in the meantime. We will be talking about The Undertaker versus Kane in a couple of seconds' time. But yeah, well, first I'm going to start with a video package, I think, with these two, see how this came around, because this is where it all begins again, the return of The Undertaker. Obviously, this starts at Survivor Series 2003. Of course, Kane buries The Undertaker alive at that show as well, helping, I believe, Vince McMahon beat The Undertaker. And there's a eulogy for The Undertaker by Kane as well. And Kane said he did what he did because Undertaker was no longer a monster. He was one of you. Obviously, this was the biker gimmick of The Undertaker, not the dead man. So that's why he killed the guy off. He said, look, you're not needed around anymore. You're not a monster like me. But we do see the gongs of the Taker start to follow Kane. There's the signs of a return, but Kane doesn't quite believe it. We see a Kane with an open casket with an urn inside, and there's a video saying the dead will rise and it will all begin again. And obviously, the ring also rises and wobbles with Kane inside it as well. The hocus pocus that you usually see with this sort of stuff. But for me, I don't know. Again, we mentioned about it. I do have my rose tinted specs on for this one. I quite enjoyed the video package looking back at it.
I absolutely love this video package. Like, I don't think we can be rose tinted about this one. I think this is just genuinely a very good package. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed how it was portrayed, and the fact that how Kane had said that his brother was no longer like, I loved every aspect of it, and then just the idea of him being born again. And I like I said, if you want a hype package for a match, and especially like for me personally, this for me is peak Undertaker character. Like, this variation of the Dead Man, like the leather trousers, the singlet underneath, the leather coat, the trench coat. Like, this is for me is peak Undertaker, and like for him to come back, and the way that this package sells his return, and the fact that obviously Kane buried him alive, dude, fantastic. I like I said, we may be rose tinted, but I absolutely love this video package.
Yeah, I did as well. I've got to say, obviously, Kane comes to ringside, obviously, for the match, and he's in ring. First, we get, like, obviously, the, oh, yes, Paul Bear returning as well, with the Druids, of course, got the Flames as well, the returning Undertaker. And for me, I feel like that's, you know, when you look at that era of WrestleMania, it's one of the most iconic entrances, the fact with the return at that point there.
Yeah.
And, I got to admit, I really enjoyed the Undertaker entrance.
Dude, even Kane's entrance, like the fact that, because obviously if you take the stage and the presentation of how this Mania was done, that the lighting rig on the stage is set to look like the New York skyline, and then when Kane comes out, it's all on fire. It looks amazing. The only thing that I critique it for is the version of his song, because it's the one where the guy starts randomly singing over it, and I'm like, you don't need that in this song. It's more menacing without it. But yeah, Paul Bearer coming back. The Druids, even though the first Druid looked a bit lost because he didn't know when to turn, because he was, it's a detail that I picked out just randomly while watching it. But Paul Bearer having him back, and the facial expressions that Paul Bearer used to deliver, just, dude, what a way to bring the guy back. And luckily enough, it's not an Undertaker entrance that takes 10 minutes. It's a really short ramp, and he's in the ring before we know it. So that's a plus for me as well.
Especially on a 4.5 hour show. You imagine a long ramp. We could have been there for the 5 hours. It could have happened. Could have been like WrestleMania 33 all over again. But I mean, look, to be fair, like, I noticed a small detail. I'm going to ask you if you noticed this as well, because I noticed when Paul Bear was walking down the ramp, one of the Druids had caught a bit of the flame on the floor. And there was actually a fire extinguisher being put. Yeah.
I
so
didn't know.
First time we've seen
like,
this on these
but like, if you go back and watch it as well, if you look at the first, so the way it's presented, if you look at the Druids as they're coming towards the screen, the first one on the right, he's turning, but like they're all supposed to be walking in a straight line, but the first one is already turning into like, where are we supposed to turn that? And it's like, oh, dude, you're ruining the whole aesthetic of what's supposed to be this evil, dark presence. And it was like, it irritates me that I notice it, because that's what I do with these things, is I pick up on the dumb, tedious little crap. And like I say, when one of the Druid walks over the fire in his foot slayer, and I'm like, is he actually on fire at one point? Kids, stupid little things we notice, man. But like I said, in 2004, I wouldn't have noticed it. But nowadays, Jesus, I'm too overly critical nowadays.
Yeah, look at every detail these days, and they were definitely sent back to OVW. There's no question about that. But hey, PS is the Return of the Dead Man, and the man, that entrance at WrestleMania 20, incredible Paul Bear. Oh yeah, it was amazing. Really was a fun entrance. But the match,
the best way I can sum up the. Sorry, just to say, the best way I can sum up Taker is he's over his moody teenager phase. Like, the American Badass is a moody teenager phase, and he's now gone back to being the Dead Man.
I like that analogy. I like that a lot. I can agree with that as well. The match for me, though, I'm not sure I liked it as much as I thought I was going to. Obviously, you mentioned about the amazing entrance. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much. I'm gonna go through the notes I've got, and then I'm gonna probably explain why. Obviously, Kane can't believe the Undertaker is really there. I thought that was great, actually, because he does a convincing job of it. The Undertaker lands many quick right hands to Kane as well, very quickly into it. I do notice, though, it's a bit Shane McMahon-esque. Half of them don't hit, which, you know, that's one of my reasons for the first knockdown. My second knockdown, a bit of a botch moment. Looks like the Undertaker's going to go for a last ride. Kane goes to do a backdrop, and it feels like the Taker doesn't go the full way. Instead, he has to hold his hands into the ring rope to avoid disaster. He literally goes face first, crashing into the mat. Again, I just kind of feel like The Undertaker, you can probably tell he's not wrestled for about 5 months here. He's taken time off and come back. However, it does get a bit better after this. Kane does actually miss Taker in the buckle. Taker comes up and lands a big boot. It looks quite an impressive big boot as well. Taker goes for old school, but Kane catches Taker in a goozle, which is the hand around the throat. Taker does the same, which Kane then lets go, but Kane gets out also. And eventually, Kane then actually lands a chokeslam of his own. Kane celebrates, it's like, I'm the monster still. Almost, he feels like he's scored a goal at the World Cup. His Hound of way he celebrates here, but Taker sits up in dead man fashion. He sells a kick to the face as well, the Undertaker, and then we get simply a jumping clothesline. We get a choke slam, and of course the classic tombstone for the win. Now, I said I'm not as big a fan of this match, but I've got a funny feeling you seem to be, NXT. So go on, you go through this first.
I thought this was a perfect Kane and Undertaker match. It's two big guys just slapping me, choke slam, tombstone. Do you know what I mean? It didn't go on for too long. I thought this was great for them too. A spoiler, I gave this a 4 because I enjoyed it like as a whole for what it was. Like, it's a story about a guy getting revenge on his brother, and like I said, the VT and the entrances and Paul Bearer, and I ranked it as like a whole experience. Like, like I said, I'm probably being really generous here. Like, you're probably right. It probably is sloppy in places and stuff like that, but I just enjoyed it for what it was. It's not even that long. What's this, about 9 minutes or something like that? Do you know what I mean? So I just enjoyed it for what it was, and I thought, dude, I gave it a 4-star just for that, man. Like I said, I thought it was a great Taker Kane match.
I had a big smile here because I noticed what Meltzer's rated it in a couple of seconds ago, which I will say in a couple of seconds. But yeah, 7 minutes and 45 seconds. I'll first give my star rating.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this a 2.5 star. I thought, like you said, I think for the latter parts of the match, I thought it was very well put together. I don't think it dragged at any point. I think it's actually good for these two big men that this was the way this match was done, because sometimes they can feel quite slow and lethargic and stuff like that. And for me, this was a good pacing of a match between the two. I thought the story of it was quite fine actually as well. If it just hadn't been for the fact that Taker almost got dropped on his head, and I felt like you could just tell there was ring rust. That's pretty much me being critical. And I think, to be fair, it's fair or fine to be rusty coming back in when you haven't wrestled for so long. And to be fair, the Undertaker's more than got every reason to be having how he wrestles and me not say a word, because he's one of the best to ever do it. But I mean, with his longevity as well. But all in all, I'm going to go for 2.5 star. But believe it or not, and this is where I'm going to just quickly make sure I get this right, because I want Steve's face. I want to see it. It's going to be absolutely priceless. Right, okay. Dave Meltzer has rated this a 1.25 star rating.
Dude, man, what is Dave on, man? Like, I question his basis of what he was watching back in the day, because is it really a 1.25 star match? Like, it's perfect for two big guys. You don't want them to drag out a match for like 20 minutes. It's like, it's a simple revenge story. And it was fast paced the whole time. It didn't drag. There was no like rest moments really. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I think Dave must have been drinking something weird that night. Because like I said, his ratings for some of it, like giving certain matches a 3.25 or 3 3/4 rating when they're absolute garbage is shocking.
I think he and you think very differently about wrestling. That's one thing for sure. What you rate high, he rates low, and then vice versa. It seems to be that way. So it's interesting to see each time how it goes. But we'll see if you both agree when it comes to the main event, obviously. And it will be, of course, the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Chris Benoit defeating Triple H and Shawn Michaels, of course, to become the champion. But before we get to the result, we need to go through the video package and the match itself. So we'll start off with the video package, obviously, with these two. It goes back to the Royal Rumble, and it starts with Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Obviously, they fight to a draw in the last man standing match. Neither man got up by the count of 10, so that means Triple H remains the champion. Great offer by Shawn Michaels, but he didn't win the Rumble, so he's out of the title picture. And of course, there was a call down for SmackDown's Chris Benoit, of course, who had won the 2004 Royal Rumble, and he actually chooses Triple H for WrestleMania. Of course, Chris had been wrestling for 18 years, looking to get a moment like this. But Shawn interrupts the contract signings says that his story with Triple H has been going on for nearly 10 years and it's close to being finished. What is it with stories and wrestling? It will be at WrestleMania, and Benoit says, well, it will be Benoit and not Shawn. So Shawn actually switches music's Chris Benoit and then signs the contract. Austin feels, well, we'll make it a triple threat match then. All three of them are involved in the match. Triple H says that the ego of the other two guys will be the edge that he needs. Benoit and HBK don't get along, but they do agree that Triple H will not be the one leaving with the title at WrestleMania. Thoughts of the video package?
Killer, absolute killer. 2 for 2, like I said, when the Kane one, Undertaker one a minute ago, and then to have this one as well, just well presented. Do you know what I mean? Tells the story it needs to tell, gives the reason, the logic behind it all. Dude, this sets up a great main event. Like, you couldn't have asked for, again, couldn't ask for another great video package, really.
Yeah, I thought it was a great video package. I really remember back in the day when Shawn did that and he switched in music to Chris Benoit and signed that contract. I was like, whoa, what are you doing, man? You can't do that. And I remember it was a real shocking moment and it was a real big deal made of it at the time. And the fact that he got made into the triple threat match, I just think, yeah, that was good stuff. And, you know, to make this into a triple threat match, obviously, perhaps if you look with the deeper of this, was there faith in Chris Benoit as the main event of WrestleMania against Triple H? Maybe not. Maybe it's the idea of we'll put Shawn in there, and obviously these three together will tear it down. We know with Triple H and Shawn, they can sell the pay-per-views. So I think that could be some of the logic and the thinking that's gone into it if we want to go down that avenue. But obviously going into the match itself, we'll go through all the details in one. It's probably my most amount of notes for a whole match of the whole card, but still, we'll get your thoughts at the end of NXT. So we've got Benoit and HBK throwing each other out of the way at the start just to get to Triple H. It seems to be that they both want to, you know, have their way with Triple H and not with each other, but it does lead to Benoit versus Michaels in the early portion of the match. Triple H does eventually get into it though, with Benoit on the outside ramming his back into the apron. We see Michaels then hit a baseball slide into the back of Benoit to knock both of them to the floor. And then obviously HBK goes to the top rope, but goes to the buckle, not the rope, Billy Kidman, goes to the buckle and hits a beautiful moonsault to both of the opponents on the floor. Benoit is tied up in the tree of woe in the corner, and Triple H Irish whips HBK into Benoit in the corner. Then Triple H attempts it a second time, but it's actually countered in the Irish whip. So Triple H gets sent towards Benoit, but Benoit sticks a boot out. So Triple H gets one in his face. Triple H attempts a pedigree, but Benoit then actually manages to get the crossface on. HBK breaks it up. And we see Benoit hit 3 German suplexes and his flying headbutt off the top rope onto HBK, but Shawn Michaels manages to kick out at 2. HBK then hits his elbow from the top rope onto Triple H and then hits Sweet Chin Music. Benoit pulls Triple H out of the ring at a 2 count. Michaels then is swing shotted into the corner and he hits the ring post from Benoit, and we see HBK is busted wide open quite badly as well, all crimson red across his face. Then the crossface then applied to him. Triple H grabs HBK and actually grabs his hand, stops him from tapping out, which I thought was a fun, creative spot in the match as well. Something you see quite often in today's market, but in that time period, that's something you did not see very often, so it was very well sold. We see then Triple H thrown into the steps from Benoit. Sorry, Andy, Steve, do you want to jump in at this point?
No, go for it. No, go for it, man.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, no. So Triple H is thrown into the steps from Benoit. Triple H then returns the favor a few minutes later before then starting to take apart the announce table. 2 announce tables get taken apart in the end, and we see Triple H and Chris Benoit on the middle one. HBK gets involved in the act attacking Benoit, and we see a moment where Shawn Michaels and Hunter just look at one another. Not a word spoken, but you could just see we got to do this together just for a second. They team up and they suplex Benoit, putting him through another announce table that was behind them. So Benoit completely written out of the match at this moment. Shawn Michaels gets back into the ring, calls Triple H into the ring. It's 1-on-1. And we see HBK throw Triple H into the ring post and the steps on the floor. This busts open Triple H. Triple H then hits a pedigree on Shawn. A delayed moment for a pinfall, and Chris Benoit breaks it at the last second at a 2 count. We then see Benoit counter a pedigree and applies a sharp shooter, obviously perhaps some sort of tribute to Bret Hart, I would imagine at this point. Michaels though does a sweet chin music on Benoit, literally almost takes his head off. It's that impactful. It's really well done, to be fair. HBK pins Benoit, but there's a kick out at 2. We see then Shawn Michaels go for another sweet chin music, but Benoit ducks and sends Michaels over the top rope to the floor. Quite spectacular dive over the rope to the floor as well. Triple H though attempts a pedigree as Benoit turns around, but Benoit counters it into the crippler crossface. Triple H can't get to the ropes, which is weird because I don't think a rope break counts in the triple threat match, but hey, who am I to care on this? He kind of fades a little bit, but then he comes back in when the ref checks the arm. Triple H uses the Warriors trying to fight it out. He tries to roll Benoit, but the momentum just keeps the crossface on instead of being near the ropes. They're now in the middle of the ring. Triple H eventually, after quite a long period, has to tap out and has to submit. Benoit, of course, then is crowned your world heavyweight champion, celebrating in the ring, but it doesn't take very long. Eddie Guerrero is with him, and of course those two celebrate as champions to close WrestleMania, which we said 20 years ago is seen as a major WrestleMania moment, not something that we see mentioned today. But first and foremost, I think we both can agree that maybe it's a bit different watching this match now 20 years ago. We'll say that very quickly, but I don't think it can be denied that this is an unbelievable match with these three competitors involved.
5 stars. I'm telling you now, I gave this 5 stars. This was phenomenal. This is the reason why triple threats are so good at WrestleMania. Like, there's a plethora of triple threat matches that have happened at WrestleMania that have all been really, really good. This is unbelievable. Like, if you take just their wrestling styles, for instance, like you've got Benoit, who is the technician and is more mat based, against Shawn Michaels, who is the high flyer showman kind of wrestler. And then you mix that in with Triple H, who in this aspect is like the slugger powerhouse wrestler. You kind of don't know what you're going to get. And the fact that because it's a triple threat, whenever one guy drops out for a breather, the other two carry on. One will drop out, the other guy comes back in. This is quality from start to finish. The blade job that Michaels does for his spot, phenomenal. Like, I clocked it as soon as it happened. Like, I had replayed it and showed my wife, and I said, look how good this spot is, because you see it just before Benoit swings him into the turnbuckle. You can see Michaels doing it. If the cameras were 4K back then, you'd be able to see a slight bit of blood before he even hits the ring post, but it's a great spot. And then the fact that he does it and he's covered in claret, and then you get to the point later on where he's standing in the ring calling for Triple H, and his face is just a sea of red. Is just an unbelievable sight. Everything in this match, wrestling-wise, is great. I'm pretty sure as well, where Triple H cuts himself, or he does his blade job in this one, isn't this match the reason why he has to wear a plaster on his forehead for like the next 3 months or something, because he cuts himself too deep? Because I remember distinctly Triple H walking around with a plaster on his forehead, but I digress. Dude, just simply a great match, great storytelling. The way Benoit pins with the sharpshooter, in the way, like, it was almost like a flashback to 13 with Brett and Brett and Austin, sorry. The way that it was kind of sold, like you said earlier, the point where Michaels is about to tap and Triple H stops him, a thing not very well seen back then in 2004, whereas nowadays it's quite a common scene. I absolutely loved this, man. I thought this was fantastic. Like, I would, like I said, if you're going to go back and watch this pay-per-view, from a wrestling standpoint, this is fantastic.
It's the match of the show. I mean, there's no argument with that. Like I said, it's a great technical work. There's great, high flying from Shawn as well, and just the impact moves he has. Triple H, obviously the cerebral assassin, the tactician as well. Like, these three, they all gelled very, very well together. The fact so well that they replayed this match at Backlash 2004. It's a fantastic match between the three guys. Everyone plays their part well, like you say. From the table spots to the big spots, the finishers, obviously how to stop people from last minutes of pulling someone out of the ring, a kick out, or whatever needs to be done just to make sure that the match doesn't finish. It's very well put together. This match as well flies by. It's the longest match on the show, but yet you wouldn't know it because it's 24 minutes. And I believe it's something like 57 seconds or something like that, or 47 seconds, apologies. And it's just, it feels like it's like 10 to 15 minutes, honestly. Easily the match of the night. It is it's a barn burner, and obviously, like you say, the way that WrestleMania ended at that point, obviously in 2004, like everybody in that arena would have been cheering for these guys. These were the world champions we wanted, and there was the world champions I wanted back in 2004. Obviously, it's a different feel watching it now. It doesn't have the same connection, the same vibe. It feels a bit eerie watching the end of that WrestleMania now.
It would be the same. Like if you was to put that in today's terms, it'd be if you changed those two, Guerrero and Benoit, with KO and Sammy, it'd be the exact same thing. That's the kind of the level that you have to base it on.
It is indeed, and actually, I'm gonna take the match graphic away from that because I don't to compare that. But now you mentioned KO and Sammy, it's something I predicted on my WrestleMania for this year predictions video. The idea that KO could win the US title and that Sammy could win the IC title, and they could have that style of moment together because then it's kind of like you can kind of because WWE wants you to forget this. They don't want you to remember this. They don't reference it. They're not ever going to reference it. You know, it's been erased from history. So they can have that style of moment with two best friends like that with titles. And Karen and Sammy, like you say, is the kind of like the perfect modern way of being able to do it. Yes, it would be with mid-card titles if it was done this year, but at the same time, you know, I think it would be a very amazing spot if they were to do so, because obviously Gunther has been the longest running IC champion. Logan Paul, obviously US champion. Randy Orton will be involved in that match as well. So it will be interesting if they manage to do something like that this year. But hey, they probably won't do it. It'll probably be Gunther and Logan Paul still as the champions after Mania. But hey, I digress to another time. But you said you've gone full on 5 stars for this match with Benoit, Michaels, and Triple H. I've gone for 4.5 stars for me. I think that, like you say, I agree with every detail that you said there with it. For me, I don't know. It's nitpicking. I think I just have a few more matches that in history that I remember are more favourable matches for me, which is those ones I give 5 stars. This one, I had to watch it again to remember how good it was. I guess is probably the reason why I've not given it 5 stars. But yeah, all in all, really, really good. And yeah, I mean, all in all, what would be your score out of 10, I guess, for this WrestleMania, your final rating?
I mean, I can't base this purely on the fact of the last 3 matches, which I thought were great. I have to base it on the scale of a whole show, and this might sound harsh, but I'm gonna go down the middle and say a 5. Like for the last 3 matches being really good, the first 12 matches were just garbage. Like there was some okay bits. They're just like it was all a lot of stuff that you can see on TV every week. There was nothing that made it really feel extra special. So I'm gonna say a 5.
Interesting. I think for my final score, I'm going to go for I'm going to go for a 6.5 maybe. I'll go in the middle. I'll go 6.25. My reason for going for just a bit higher than you, because I kind of agree with you to a degree. There is some bad matches, a lot of filler on this show, but there is some good stuff as well. But the one thing I like about this show, which is an overriding feeling from start to finish, is it feels important. Everything feels important for some reason watching it. Just the idea of like it being in Madison Square Garden. I don't know if it's the fact that I have a bit of a soft spot for that arena. The fact that's where WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 10 have been as well. Some epic moments in wrestling history as well. But just the fact that I don't know, it just like I said, everything felt a big deal. When you look at the roster as well, there's so much star power throughout top to bottom on that show, which is unbelievable. And there are some good matches in it. I mean, we enjoyed the opener with Cena versus the Big Show. I do think Christian and Jericho was decent enough. I did enjoy the handicap match, and if I would say that I enjoyed as well Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle as well as the main event there with the triple threat. There is enough matches on this show for me to give it a slightly higher rating than halfway, but I would agree with you. Like, all in all, I can't go too much higher though, because I would criticize AEW for this, so I can't really go and turn around and say differently for a WWE show. It's too darn long. It's a long show, 4.5 hours. I don't need shows that I don't care if it's WrestleMania. You don't do it 4.5 hours. That's why I prefer the 2-night format, because you can have like 3.5 hours, and it's more sizable and it's more digestible. This for me, it's a long sit through if you're going to do it, but there is some good stuff to watch in this show. It's just unfortunately you will have to sit through a lot of filler and stuff in between as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can easily take out 5 matches and it makes it a much more enjoyable show. If you take out the 2 tag title matches, you take out the 2 women's matches, and you take out the Goldberg Brock Lesnar match, the rest of the card is fine. It's actually an enjoyable show. But yeah, it's just like I said, you think of the 5 matches I've just taken out, the 2 of the tag matches are like 10 minutes long. One of the women's is like 2 minutes long. But no, both the women's matches are like 2 minutes long, and you take out 13 minutes. You're taking out half hour's worth of wrestling, and it just, I mean, it would have cut the show down so vastly. But that's the reason why I can't mark it any higher than a 5. The fact that we had 5 TV-ish quality matches that on a WrestleMania, and that's why I can't go that high.
No, I understand that indeed, and I think it's a fair rating indeed. Pierce says that he does two-night WrestleManias as well. I've got to say that good that we share that viewpoint, and obviously WrestleMania, where it all begins again. Well, I can say now to our viewers, well, this is where it all begins again for you, because thank you all for picking WrestleMania 20 as the retro review, the WrestleMania rewind for this year. Your job will next be picking Backlash next month, so we will wait till after WrestleMania to put the poll up on the channel. But thank you all, everyone that has been watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, you see it above NXT's head. Make sure to hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. And drop a comment at the end of this video as well, because believe it or not, those small little things don't take very long, but they help the algorithm on YouTube so much. And I can tell you, this channel at this particular moment needs it. I can tell you it needs it at the minute more than ever. So if you can do, really would appreciate any likes, any comments. Obviously, people that are subscribed already, thank you. For anyone watching on the late, it's your first time, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and please consider hitting the subscribe button as well. There are retros once a month, and they will continue to do so throughout the rest of this calendar year as well. But of course, WrestleMania this year is WrestleMania 40. Obviously, this is the 20-year anniversary. This has been recorded a day before the 20-year anniversary. You can actually see the WrestleMania 40 predictions close to the time of the show. It'll be the week of the show on the Tuesday. But before I leave, I want to say a big thank you to the chat as well. Everyone that's put the comments in, that's taken the time to watch this. Appreciate you all as always. And the ones that have actually watched the show as well, to do so. Thank you for taking that time. NX Steve, each and every time we do these shows, you take the time to watch these shows as well. And obviously come out and give your viewpoint as well. So I want to say a massive thank you for taking that time out. And we've been here for nearly 2 hours as well, discussing WrestleMania 20.
Dude, no problems, man. Like I said, it's always good to go back. Like I said, my brain isn't as good as it used to be, so I forget stuff. So going back and watching these is always fun. It's always fun to find the absolute garbage, and then to find, you know what I mean, the secret little gems that you sometimes find when going back and watching these old pay-per-views.
Absolutely, indeed, there, and that's what it's all about when it comes to doing these shows, and that's what makes them so fun as well. But we want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has been watching this video. I want you to look after yourselves and each other, and make sure that you join us for the next retro that will be on the channel as well. There are plenty of videos on the channel in the meantime, and if you are watching this at the current timeline of now, then make sure to tune in tomorrow. It'll be a live Q&A with myself and WrestleManiac UK. So for that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say a big thank you all for watching. Look after each other. This is SCW signing out, looking at for SCW Rewind for the month of March 2024. Take care. See you soon.